And what is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the Tuesday show, gang. Good to see you. Couple of folks in the chat already. I'm sure we're getting some more coming in the next few minutes. A little bit of a short notice kind of a show. Which side of my head is that? That's that one. A little bit of a short notice show. Forgot to schedule it while I was just slapping together a quick WNBA model for tonight. No promises about that one. I really just adapted the touch-based projections that I use for the NBA, but we don't have tracking data for the WNBA. It looks like they've got all the stats boards are laid out exactly the same, but they don't have exactly the same categories in some of them as far as getting tracking and per touch data, which I like. So I had to do a quick adaptation of the NBA model. Just threw things together for you. It's in the basketball channel if you're in Discord. I didn't publish it to the website because it's very, very rough. Consider it beta projections or whatever. But I got a little sidetracked doing that over the last 2 hours, so I forgot to schedule the YouTube show. But I'm glad you guys found your way here. Glad it wasn't too much of a surprise. Let me mute my phone here. Got an interesting 11-gamer tonight. Had a fun night last night. Had a good chaser lineup in there. If I'd gone Jasmani Grandal over Rowdy Tellez, we'd be celebrating a pretty solid little W. Profitable day, but didn't quite get to the top of the mountain after lingering up there the entire time. But congrats to anybody who did. I saw some familiar screen names out there in and among the chasers. Pirates obviously got there for us. The Cardinals disappointed us as predicted from a decent projections. Fortunately today they're down the board. We've got the other side of that Pittsburgh and Milwaukee game looks kind of interesting to me today. A lot to get through. One that really killed me was Imanaga too. Only went 5. Great start, but only went 5. Killed both bonuses because he came out in a 0-0 tie too. So could have gotten a little bit more out of that one too. The guy who won on FanDuel anyway had George Kirby with the exact same lineup, Grandal instead of Tellez, and then George Kirby leaving a little bit of salary on the table. You did mention something about Grandal in Discord, I think, after the slate started, Lone Wolf, but yeah, you did. I saw that comment. And yeah, during the show yesterday, I brought him up real quick as we were going through that lineup, and I just said, oh, yeah, he used to be great at getting on base, but hasn't been that guy for the last couple of seasons, and he hasn't. He's been pretty diminished over the last couple of seasons at the plate. But obviously, any given slate upside. And yeah, that one worked pretty nicely. So hopefully somebody out there got there. But congrats to everybody who was doing well. Anybody who took anything down. And just congrats on being yourselves, guys. Welcome to the show. Lone Wolf's here. Andy Melman. D's here. Matthew Patterson's here. Matthew says, hey, guys, give me Kyle Tucker to break the slate. Not a huge hot take. We had his buddy Alex Bregman signs of life last night with a double darn game. He was in that lineup. Travis is here. Cujo's here. Tall to God is here. Let me pull up the board here real quick. So as I was saying, a pretty interesting 11-game slate. It is 11 games on DraftKings. The second game of that doubleheader doesn't count. So make sure that you're not playing anything from that. I don't know if they took it out of the salary board. It was in there earlier with just like a note. Don't play this one. So I don't play that one. Lone Wolf's looking at going back to Houston. Yeah, it doesn't look like a bad idea. The top of the board was kind of dominated by some of the obvious teams. A lot of the really good teams are going against bad to mediocre pitching today. So, like, if you pull up the top stacks board on rotoscouts.com for free, you got the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Braves, and the Astros all in the top 4 spots. They're going up against Keaton Winn, Chris Paddock, Jamison Tyone, and J.P. Sears, respectively. Obviously, the best matchup is the Dodgers against Keaton Winn. You can get from time to time quality out of Paddock, Tyon, and J.P. Sears, but it's elevating all 4 of those big high-priced teams. The next little tier of teams is kind of interesting. Tampa Bay against Nick Pivetta, who's been scuffling a little bit, was hurt, came back, had a bad one. Milwaukee, like I said at the very beginning just a minute ago, against Quinn Priester, I think is very interesting. Cleveland against Jack Leiter, I think could be interesting. Texas against Ben Lively. So there's a lot of spots to go outside of the very top of the board. But yeah, Astros coming in 4th against J.P. Sears. 2 dominant lefty bats against same-handed pitching, and then a lot of quality right-handed bats in there. So yeah, kind of like that one. We'll get into it. Let's start with the Vegas board as usual. Travis is calling it Jake Myers, Don. Is that who you're talking about? Tampa Bay at Boston, 9-run total in that one. Pretty close on the line. Struggling out, Aaron Savali going up against Pivetta, 4.49 implied total for the Rays, 4.61 on the Red Sox side. They're slightly favored, but it's pretty close. Next game, Tyon against Atlanta. Chris Sale going for the Braves. Sale looking pretty good, 4.70 implied total for the Atlanta side, just 3.40 for the Cubs. Looks like a good Chris Sale spot to limit that Cubs team, but we know they're a good squad that we typically, if we don't have to target them, it's for the better a lot of times based on their on base skills and their run scoring ability, their run creation with a little bit of power mixed in. But I think Sale's one of those pitchers that we can go over the top and just kind of rely on him and get there. Yanks with Carlos Rodon on the mound going up against the Twins. The Twins that are just a 4.24 against Rodon with their heavily right-handed stacked version of the lineup. No Edward Julian in the lineup today. Yanks at 4.35 going up against Chris Paddock, who's had some decent starts this year. A little bit up and down overall. Pirates and the Brewers, like I said, I like the Brewers side of that one going up against Quinn Priester. Pirates facing Joe Ross. Not completely dead on their side either. They're checking in yet again at just 3.86. We got away with it yesterday. It's not showing nearly the quality that it did in yesterday's game, so I don't think we attacked Joe Ross, but definitely interested in some of those Brewers bats. They're showing some power. We'll see what the lineup looks like. Rhys Hoskins came out last night. I've got Gary Sanchez in there. Actually took Gary as the home run pick of the day. But we'll see what happens with the lineup. If Gary's not in there, apologies. We wasted a home run pick. 4.73 implied total for the Brewers. Guardians at the Rangers. Jack Leiter again going for the Rangers. The hell's pitching for the Guardians? Brain dead. Ben Lively. That's right. He sucks. It's a spot where we can target, I think, both sides of this game. Jack Leiter has not been overly good, and this Guardians team with their low strikeout approach, their station-to-station baseball, I could definitely see them exploiting some of his weaknesses so far. And then the Rangers against Ben Lively seems like an easy target spot, 4.66 implied total for them, but 4.44 on the other side for the Guardians. The Athletics going up against Ronel Blanco, who's been defying expectations continually and has looked good and gets not a total cakewalk matchup. This Athletics team is maybe a little bit better than we've given them credit for early in the season. Maybe. Not jumping to that conclusion yet, and Blanco's been really good. So Astros heavily favored. They're going up against JP Sears, 4.83 implied total for them. Second highest on the board, it looks like. Yeah, second highest behind the Dodgers. Makes a ton of sense. On the Oakland side, just 3.78 for them. And again, Blanco's been really solid. The lousy Cardinals, just a 3.83 implied total. Hopefully we don't have to worry about them going up against Reed Detmers. Sonny Gray going for the Cards. That's why they're favored in this one. But you can see just a 7-run total in this game. 2 other games just at 7 runs as well. Some avoidable spots for bats and maybe some spots to look at for pitching. 3.83 implied total on the Card side, 3.25 for the Angels, and that's a really lousy Angels lineup. So seems like it would be a spot where Sonny Gray should succeed. We know that from time to time Sonny goes kablooey, and typically when he does, it's a big explosion. Last time out, he gave up 6 earned, but it's rare that he goes out and does that multiple starts in a row. Not that the last start has anything really to do with this start. That's like saying, it's been black 5 times in a row on the roulette wheel, so now it's got to be red. That doesn't work that way. Every spin is independent. So this is an independent spot. Doesn't matter what he did last time. But Sonny Gray is very talented, and he's facing a very, very gettable Angels lineup. The Reds against the Diamondbacks, 4.47 implied total for the Diamondbacks, 4.12 on the Reds side. Reds going against Slade Ciccone, and the Diamondbacks going up against Hunter Green. Mixed results for both of those pitchers. Green's a very talented pitcher, but he's had a couple of not completely rough starts, but some earned runs given up, 6 earned runs back on the 10th of April against Milwaukee. Had a 4 earned run game against Philly, but went 7 in that one, struck out 6. So by and large, he's been good. I'm actually surprised that the run total is in the mid-4s rather than the low 4s on the Diamondback side. Maybe something to consider there. And I'm kind of interested in targeting Slade Ciccone with some Reds bats. They're not that expensive. They've got some talent. Little bit of support in the run column. So I think they're at least a little bit interesting as like a value squad. The Royals and the Mariners, Logan Gilbert going for the Mariners, Michael Wacha going for the Royals. Wacha's super cheap. I think he's kind of interesting going up against that lousy high strikeout Mariners lineup. It could be another good day for Michael Wacha. 4.47 implied total though, 3.93 implied total for the Mariners in another 7-run game. Just 3.14 on the Royal side going up against a very talented Logan Gilbert, who had a disaster of a start his last time out, but by and large is very, very good. The Rockies going up against the top pitcher of the day, Dylan Cease, should be primed for a biggie. I know that spot didn't exactly connect yesterday, but you can see it in the run total. 2.60 for the Rockies today against Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease is a extraordinary strikeout pitcher. Definitely seems like a killer spot if you can afford it. 4.51 implied total for the Padres. They're going up against Cal Quantrill, who's actually strung together a couple of good starts. 4 of his last 5 starts have been quality starts. Just one messy one in the middle against Houston. He gave up 6 earned runs, 2 strikeouts, 2 home runs, 2 walks, 6 hits. But on the other sides of that one, there's some good starts here. So it's a weird Cal Quantrill result right now. I don't think that's a great reason to go to him, and the Padres are definitely drawing a little bit of a run total in the mid-4s. I think you can look at some Padres bats against him, but some of those starts stand out a little bit. So it's a little surprising. But again, not a spot where I'm going to Cal Quantrill, but maybe it takes a little bit of the top end off of the Padres stack. And then the last game on the board, the Dodgers against the Giants. Keaton Winn going for the Giants, Gavin Stone for the Dodgers. 4.95 implied total for Los Angeles against Keaton Winn, who's just been a mess over his last couple of starts and not all that good overall. So I think it's a killer spot for the Dodgers and the Giants. I think Gavin Stone is reasonable here. 3.66 implied total for San Francisco. Stone looks kind of interesting. Jump over to the pitching board. We'll sort it by DK. So we're sorted at all. So a couple of easy names off the top of the board. Dylan Cease against the Rockies, just kind of dominating projections. But Logan Gilbert against KC looking very, very good. Chris Sale against the Cubs coming in strong as well. Hunter Green against that Arizona team. This is what I was saying, especially at 8,600 on DraftKings. Hunter Green is not uninteresting against that team. He hasn't been bad. So I think that's a really fair price. At 93 on FanDuel, I think you could definitely roll with it over there. So any of the top 4 are pretty obvious. Sonny Gray checking in at 10.5, 10.8 across sites. Very expensive, but again, another high-end pitcher going up against a bad team. Ronel Blanco's been pitching really well. I think settling in right around here is justifiable. The price is a little high for Ronel Blanco just on talent, but he's been getting away with his talent level and pitching, again, very, very well, and it's a spectacular matchup. So I think it's justifiable at 10,000 on FanDuel. At 9,500, I think he's definitely in the mix on DraftKings. Carlos Rodon, he's going to spike some good starts. He hasn't been bad on the whole. Last time out, he struck out 7, gave up just 2 earned runs. This was against Houston. 7 hits is problematic. Gave up a home run. The start before that at Baltimore was a disaster. Gave up 3 homers, 6 earned, 7 runs total on 8 hits. Struck out 6, but that's a messy start in 4 innings. It's a little bit of reason to, think of him as an up and down kind of a pitcher at this point. But he does have a fairly high ceiling. And that Minnesota team, as well as they perform for a stretch, it's an okay lineup. And again, they're stacking it very platoon right-handed heavy. But there's not really that much reason to believe that Carlos Rodon couldn't succeed, especially at 8,000 on DraftKings. That's kind of interesting. Michael Wacha, again, landing just squarely in the upper middle part of the board as we get into the more value-oriented players. 7,600, 6,800 is a spectacular price going up against that Mariners team. He just had a good one for us in his last start as a value pitcher, and he comes back in pretty much the same level. So I think we can get to Wacha here. The expectation should be tempered. It's not a guaranteed spot by any means. There's no lock here. But he's got a little bit of strikeout ability. He's got a little bit of ability to, book some innings. He went 6 in his last start. That was against the Angels. Similarly, scuffling kind of a team. They're probably lower end in the long term than Seattle is. Seattle's got a couple better players, but at least it justifies a little bit of faith in Wacha. Couple rough starts before that one, but then basically the full stretch of the first 4 or 5 starts was not bad. So I think we could probably get away with him for the salary. Detmers against St. Louis, I don't really see any reason to not go to it at 82, 83. He's talented enough, and that team's just been bad all year, including last night. Gavin Stone, like I said, solid middle of the board projection for 7,900 on either site. Makes a ton of sense to me going up against the scuffling San Francisco team that he's got checked under 4 runs. Pivetta and Savali being right next to each other at basically the same 25.91 and 25.92 on the FanDuel scale. Couldn't get much closer than that. A couple of scuffling pitchers. The one I'm really concerned about is Savali. He's just been lousy this season. He only went 4 2/3 in the last couple starts, actually. It's 4 starts in a row that he hasn't finished the 5th inning. The last time out, he had only given up 2 runs, 4 strikeouts, 2 walks, a homer, 2 earned on 5 hits, but came out without even completing the 5th, let alone the 6th. The 3 starts in a row before that, he gave up 7 earned, 6 earned, and 5 earned, so didn't really deserve to complete the 5th inning. But just hasn't really been right, hasn't really been finding the strikeouts. So I don't know that I go there against Boston in Boston. And then Pivetta just made the 1 start back after being out since April 3rd, and it was a disaster against Atlanta. We'll see what he looks like coming out here in a better matchup against Tampa Bay. I think it's fair to project him out just in the middle of the board, but at 78-82, he's not out of range completely. It's just, what do the innings look like? What does the ceiling actually look like by comparison to some of these guys that are more fully unleashed? There's no reason to think that Chris Paddack couldn't beat the Yankees. Again, he's had some pretty good starts, including a 10 strikeout game over 5 1/3 against that Seattle team. In his last one, gave up just 1 earned, 8 hits. 6 strikeouts in 6 innings against Boston the start before that for a more comparative team. For 9,000 on FanDuel, I don't love it. I think it's playable, but at that price, like, there's a lot of comparable options. I'd rather have Rodon on the other side of the game at 91. I'd probably rather have Hunter Green at 93 and a bunch of those higher price guys, and maybe even some of the lower price guys. But at 6,500 on DraftKings, Chris Paddack is absolutely playable. Probably a priority from the bargain bin. I don't think it's completely insane to say that you could play him and him together for a total of 13-3. You could get an upside strikeout game with a win bonus from Waka. You can get an upside strikeout game from Chris Paddack with a win bonus if all goes well. At those prices, that's not completely insane, and that buys you a ton of great bats. Obviously, you're leaving out a lot of really good pitchers. You're leaving out Dylan Cease against the Colorado Rockies in a home start. You make that decision knowing what you're doing, and it's probably a full portfolio of 150, or like if you're building 20, you do that in 1 or 2 of them. But I think it's on the board. Joe Ross against Pittsburgh. Again, another guy, no reason to think that he couldn't succeed against that Pittsburgh lineup. He's talented enough. 7,000 on FanDuel. I don't know how many times I roll those dice. Again, just a lot of pitchers above him that are better. But he's gotten blown up twice, but he's made 4 or 5 pretty successful starts throughout the season. Just doesn't typically pitch all that deep into games. At 5,200, though, on DraftKings, it's another at least item in the bargain bin. Ciccone with a little bit of strikeout upside for 63. Playable from the bargain bin. JP Sears is probably where I start drawing the line just for the matchup. I do think Sears is a talented enough pitcher that we get away with him from time to time, and that DraftKings price is very, very low. It's just how far do we really want to stretch that with all these other options above him and going up against the worst matchup out of all those guys going up against the Astros. Ben Lively's a hard no. Jameson Taillon is a fairly hard no. That Atlanta lineup is diminished and underperforming compared to what they were last year so far this season, but there's just too much talent for that really to last too much longer, and Taillon's not exactly a guy to go out of your way for, so it wouldn't completely shock me if he had an effective day but not a slate winning day. I don't think we need to dip down here for him, again, especially with better options above. Priester's a no against Milwaukee. Cal Quantrill's a no for me against San Diego, but I get it based on the last couple starts at 55 if you wanted to roll the dice. And Keaton Winn and Jack Leiter, I think, are pretty much no's. Milwaukee lineup's out. All right, we'll grab it in a Minnesota lineup. That one we got. I put that one in and updated the site for before the show. I got the Red Sox and the Twins lineups in so far. So to get us started, Rays at the Red Sox. We saw a little bit of action in this one. The wind was blowing out last night. some run scoring happened. Could see another, decently high scoring game. To put numbers on Savali's struggles, 5.88 ERA, but a 3.64 xFIP. This is what I'm clinging to for the idea that Savali is still good. 24% strikeout rate's okay, but it was higher last year after joining Tampa Bay. This is settling back to kind of the pitcher that Savali was before that transaction. 6.7% walk rate. He's given up a decent amount of premium contact and power this season. A little bit below average by stuff plus. That's not completely unexpected for the kind of pitcher that Savali is. He was just better last year, and especially down the stretch when he joined Tampa Bay. So some definite reason to be concerned. And again, has not completed the fifth inning in any of his last 4 starts. And they've been messy, strikeout high of 5 over that stretch. He struck out 8 twice this season, once against the Rangers in what might have been his best start of the year, and then once against the Angels, but he gave up 3 earned runs in that game. It's been really dicey. I don't really see a need to tangle with the Red Sox with Savali. He's just fairly priced, though. All right, so in the middle of the board, if you're building 150 lineups, he should at least be in the mix for a few. But it's pretty low faith right now based on current form. And the Red Sox are good enough that there's reason to fear them, at least the top half of the lineup. From Tyler O'Neill up, it's a pretty decent lineup. Bottom half leaves something to be desired, at least the way they're going right now. For Pivetta, that game against Atlanta, he only went 4. He struck out 1, walked 1, gave up 3 home runs, 5 earned runs, 7 hits, faced 19 batters. He had been out since April 3rd. He made 1 effective start against Seattle to start the season, struck out 10, gave up a homer and 3 hits, but that was it. Struck out just 3 over 5 innings against Oakland. I think he left that start early with the injury, but I can't remember exactly what happened with that start. But only struck out 3. Got the win in that short start against Oakland, 5 innings. But the most recent one is the one I'm concerned about. And I don't know what the form's necessarily going to look like, what the depth is necessarily going to look like. For the price, there's plenty of talent here. 31.2% strikeout rate with a 4.04 ERA and a 3.55 xFIP over 142 2/3 last year in 16 starts. The year before, 22.6% strikeout rate. This was obviously a big leap. 10% swinging, went up to 13.1% swinging, 26.7% CSW, went to 29.3. So he made some significant leaps last year. If he's dropped back down to, around this kind of a level, that would be concerning. But in the very small sample, the stuff looks pretty dynamite. I don't know what it looks like from the first 2 starts compared to that 1 4-inning start when he came back against Atlanta. But the numbers aren't completely terrible outside of the premium contact, but again, we're talking about 15 innings, and 3 of those home runs in the 6.67 came in that Braves game. Just kind of a situational, probably not going to get the depth, probably not fully ready to deliver a ceiling start here. But if he came in around the projections around the median for those prices, I wouldn't be surprised at all. And there is a little bit of ceiling into, call it into the 30s on FanDuel, into the mid, 15, 16 range on DraftKings. With the ability to book the bonus, I expect the Red Sox to win this game. Taking a look at the Red Sox lineup. Let me configure this like this so I can still see the... I love you too, Bob Jones. Love all you guys. You guys rock. Hit the like button, by the way. Check out our pals over at acemind.io. Promo code rotoscouts, all in caps, gets you 20% off your first month over there. Sims and optimizers for baseball, basketball, football. Not sure if they got a WNBA up yet, but probably working on it. Got to check that out. Anyway, give those guys a try. The first 3 days over there are always free. And then, again, promo code rotoscouts, all in caps. 20% off your first month when you decide to subscribe. I almost got through that. So, Jarren Duran, Willie Abreu, Connor Wong, Rafi Devers, and Tyler O'Neill. Pretty solid 5-man, just top to bottom there. Nobody's all that expensive. O'Neill at 59 is obviously priced up for a successful season for power. He hit his 10th home run last night. He's still got a 319 ISO. Triple slash has come down a little bit, but he's still getting on base at a 381 clip, creating runs 62% better than average, and just mashing when he connects. Nothing wrong with O'Neill for that price. 3,200 on FanDuel feels cheap. Rafi Devers still 3,500 on FanDuel, 5,000 on DraftKings. Didn't crush yesterday, but delivered a few points for us after we talked about him as a cheap potential one-off. And if they're going to keep him at 5,000, I'm going to just keep recommending it. He is too good to be that cheap, and he has not been off at all. The contact is right where it's supposed to be. The triple slash is right where it's supposed to be. The home runs, the actual resulting home runs have been down slightly. He's got 4 on the season, a 196 ISO. Last year he hit 33, had a 229 ISO. But again, it's on similar contact. He struck out 5% more. That's probably where those home runs have gone, like I said yesterday. So plenty of faith in the upside for Rafi Devers any given slate. Connor Wong for just 3,500, considering what he's done at the plate so far, considering that this was a catcher that we looked at for premium contact, sneaky home run upside when he was cheap and unknown at the bottom of this lineup the last couple of seasons. I definitely think he's playable from the 3 spot for just 3,500, 2,700 against a struggling Aaron Savali, who's given up some power and premium contact this year. Looks pretty killer in that spot, actually. That 3,500 is way too low. 27 on FanDuel, too. Consider him the first baseman, right? I'm happy to play him over Dom Smith. Dom Smith has a little bit of connect ability, a little bit of a hit tool, but not on display in his 30 plate appearances this year. Little bit of lefty pop, but I'd much rather have Connor Wong for slightly more, 400 more on FanDuel. And at 35, again, a catcher. That's a good catcher one-off, too. If you're not one-offing Rafi Devers, or maybe you just two-man it, Connor Wong, Rafi Devers together. But I do like the upside for the top end of the lineup, too. Jarren Duran's getting on at a 328 clip. He's got 9 stolen bases, a 104 WRC+. Needs to turn things on, but a capable enough hitter who drives the ball effectively, 45.7% hard hits last year, 40.6% this year. Willie Abreu is making tremendous contact at the plate so far. Over 123 plate appearances, 3 home runs, 5 steals, a 143 WRC+, 198 ISO, 292, 382, 491 triple slash. Look at all the on base at the top of the lineup for the Red Sox, too. It's an underrated team. 372 on base up top. If they weren't missing Tristan Casas and Masataka Yoshida, this Red Sox team would be one to watch. They're not bad. Dom is cheap. If you're building out full stacks and rolling a bunch of them, you definitely want him in there. 2,300 on both sites. 12 home runs in 586 plate appearances last year was awful in a small sample the year before that, and has never really delivered on what his promise initially was. But if he's in the lineup, he's playable for very cheap prices. Vaughn Grissom does have prospect pedigree, a little bit of upside based on that and based on small sample output over the last 2 seasons with Atlanta, but hasn't really been good over 33 yet with the Red Sox. Definitely reason to believe in the upside, though, and he's very cheap, 26-22. Like him at second base more than at shortstop. Reese McGuire, I'm going to Connor Wong if I'm taking a catcher from this lineup every time, but he's also there. He'll be much, much lower owned. He's not incapable. Over 76 plate appearances, 2 homers, 3 steals, a 112 WRC+, decent triple slash. Cedric Rafaela, a lot of talent as a prospect, but has not delivered yet. Just minor counting stat output. But he's in there every day. He plays 4 positions on FanDuel for just 2,800. He's a capable enough wraparound based on what his skill set is. He's just not getting on base, so he can't really exploit his speed. And he's not really connecting, so he's not really exploiting his power. But there is ability down there. On the Rays side, assuming this is something close to the lineup, it's probably at least the top 6 or so are correct. Yandy Diaz, somewhat rounding into form. We're at 104 WRC+, just 3 home runs, just a 320 on base, 261 average. He's got a lot of work to do to get back to where he was, but the hard hit rate is nice. He was barreling the ball a lot more last year than he was the year before. If you look, 4.8% barrels, 48.6% hard hits in 22, and that went way up in 23. He's kind of right back to this level. That's almost an exact match. So maybe the power is going to be diminished a little bit. Maybe the ISO, the upside for run creation is going to be diminished a little bit, and it'll be more correlated scoring based on his ability to limit strikeouts, put the ball in play, and to draw walks. His walks are down a little bit so far this year too. I'd be interested to see the swing decisions there, or the called strike output. Obviously, he's not striking out a lot, but I wonder where those walks went. Josh Lowe, back in the lineup, just 23 plate appearances so far, but had a tremendous year last year, 20 home runs, 32 steals. Randy Arozarena, another really scuffling player, over 172 plate appearances this year. 7 home runs and 7 stolen bases have kept him slightly alive for DFS. Last year, he had 23 and 22. He had a 126 WRC+ with a 254, 364, 425 triple slash to go with that. We know that Randy Arozarena is a very good player. He hit 20 home runs and stole 32 bases in 2022. It's just been a little bit lost. His price is down, but not crazy down at 33 on FanDuel. At 46 on DraftKings, he does start to get pretty interesting. We've just lost some premium contact so far. He's striking out a little bit more than he used to. He's drawn the same walks, but it's only resulted in a 262 on base. I gotta wonder what that BABIP looks like. Oof. There's your problem. 183 batting average on balls in play so far this year. That will do it. Last year, every year of his career, his batting average on balls in play has been over 300. There's your problem. Isaac Paredes, tremendous power hitter. 8 home runs on the season. Is also slashing 300, 387, 514. Might just be a tremendous hitter, full stop. 214 ISO, career run 61% better than average. Only cost $4,800 at third base on DraftKings. DraftKings just underpricing third baseman. Him and Rafi Devers looking pretty solid at that position. Third base, first base on FanDuel for 33. Yes, please. Richie Palacios, decent enough. 281, 395, 406. A little bit of power, a little bit of speed, creating runs. And that's true for a lot of these players. Harold Ramirez has a little bit of pop, a little bit of speed. More of a line drives guy, but definitely a correlated scoring option. Johnny DeLuca, a rookie with power, 286, 394, 536. He's got a home run. He's stolen 2 bases, created runs 69% better than average in his tiny 33 plate appearance sample, but supposed to be able to hit a little bit. Ben Rortvedt is more of a afterthought at catcher, but he's been producing in 80 plate appearances. It's not bad. But he's mostly here for defense. Jose Caballero is definitely interesting. 17 stolen bases and 142 plate appearances while getting on at just a 314 clip. Playable, interesting enough wraparound. I prefer him at multi-position on FanDuel where I can put him at second base rather than shortstop where there are just more premium options by and large. But definitely playable on either site. It's probably more about the bats. I think both pitchers are playable. If you have faith that Pivetta can give you a 6, then so be it. The projection would definitely be higher if he was at 6 innings. Price is fine. You can roll those dice if you have reason to believe that he's going to give you 6. Aaron Savali's just been really shaky, but I do think he's, loosely playable from the mid-range if you're building a bunch of lineups. Red Sox bats, yes. Rays bats, lighter, yes, but yes. Travis, is Geloff back? I was actually thinking about that as I was looking at Oakland earlier today, and when I was saying that they might be deserving of a little bit more credit early in the show, I was actually going to chime in that if Geloff was in that lineup, it would make them even more appealing and better overall. Let's wait for confirmation on that. I haven't seen it. Let's see. I'll just do a quick search on Twitter. Doesn't look like there's any news. That would definitely be a bump to their lineup. Let's put it that way. We'll get to that game. I don't think it's completely nuts. I was actually looking at them when I was just playing with placeholder lineups last night. I do think at some point the Ronel Blanco balloon goes bust a little bit. Hasn't happened yet. Could be the spot to do it, but it's not a great team. But I think they'll be probably less popular than maybe they should be, especially if Geloff's back in. We'll get there. Cubbies. Jamison Tyon's pretty much a no. 17% strikeout rate, a 1.13 ERA with a 4.31 xFIP. This is the real Jamison Tyon over there. Has been decent at limiting hard hits and premium contact and barrel rate, but gives up a lot of launch. This is not the team to give up a lot of launch to. I do think there's upside for power for the Braves. You can see 3 guys in the lineup over the magic number for home runs with Ozzie Albies hanging right behind them. Just doesn't really feel like the spot to roll Tyon shares at 73 and especially at 87 on FanDuel. This is cheap enough that you've got faith. If you're Dennis Forgy or a resident Cubs fan, maybe you want to play a Tyon share or 2. Fine, so be it. He does have enough talent to get you there. It's just not the great matchup. 6 innings in his last start, did strike out 7. He walked 2, gave up 2 hits, no earned runs. That was against Milwaukee. 7 1/3 against the Mets in Queens. Struck out 1, gave up just a solo homer, 4 hits. Hasn't given up more than 1 earned run in any of his starts. 2 home runs allowed all year. Strikeout high was that 7 that he put up against Milwaukee. He beat Houston if you want a reasonable comp. 5 2/3, 4 strikeouts, 2 walks, 1 earned run, 2 runs scored on 7 hits. Taillon is a not untalented pitcher. It's just the ceiling's not that high, typically not that high for strikeouts. There are some strikeouts lurking in this Braves lineup, but I'd much rather be on the Braves side of it, I think, especially with them showing a little bit of power. Chris Sale, on the other hand, 30.6% strikeout rate, just walking 4.7, 2.95 ERA with a 2.46 xFIP. Stuff Plus loves the guy. That's another reason Stuff Plus not really on Taillon's side there if you want a tiebreaker. Barrels just 4.6%, keeps the ball on the ground at a 6.1 degree average launch, 28.7% hard hit rate with 84.6 miles an hour of exit velo. Looking like the old Chris Sale. Last year, over 102 2/3, he was good at all those things, but he was giving up more launch, giving up more barrels, a little bit more hard hits and exit velo, definitely more home runs in the larger sample. Strikeout rate was similar. Walk rate was a little bit higher, 4.30 xFIP with a 3.72, other way around. ERA than xFIP. Chris Sale, obviously a very high-end pitcher capable of dominating this team. There are not an abundance of strikeouts in this lineup, but some of their key hitters are gettable for strikeouts, and Chris Sale can get anybody. So I don't really worry about the strikeout upside and the ceiling. I think the projection is right where it needs to be. 10,000, 10-4 across sites, totally justifiable. I would take some Cubbies bats against him in the right situation. It's not a direct spot where I got to hedge a Chris Sale position, but they're good enough if you wanted to look at it as a hedge, or if you just wanted to take a team with a little bit of power, a little bit of on-base skills against what should be a highly owned and very expensive pitcher, and they'll be probably significantly under-owned, at least for their talent. There's justification for going to the Cubs for those reasons. I feel like I'm on Shark Tank sometimes. You can go to the Cubs for those reasons. And for those reasons, I'm out. Cubbies, Nico Horner, Seiya Suzuki, Cody Bellinger, Chris Morel in the projected lineup. Do we have any confirmed? Doesn't look like. We do have the Braves. Still no Cubs. Braves is, different. Little yellow, different. Let's talk about the Cubs still real quick. Nico, 5 stolen bases, gets on at a very decent clip. Very good table setter off the top. Again, this is kind of what I like about the Cubs. A couple of small samples within this, but that group of hitters is at a 347 average on base. If I include that 213 that I missed at the bottom, it's 332. That's still very good considering 2 of these guys are below 300. And the key hitters are pretty significant on-base skill guys. A couple of these guys are underperforming their talent level. Ian Happ, most specifically, with just 1 homer, 1 stolen base, a 91 WRC plus, a .082 ISO. Still getting on okay, but Ian Happ is a much better hitter than this. He's got a little bit of speed. He's got a little bit of power upside. 43.28, fair price to pay for him. He's priced down a little bit on his talent. Mike Tauchman dropping down the projected lineup against a lefty, but still in here. He's getting on at a 401 clip. Not an ideal spot probably to play Mike Tauchman. I don't know what the splits look like top of my head, but I would have to imagine it's a disadvantage against Chris Sale for him. Patty Wisdom, Chris Morel, a lot of right-handed power there. You can see both guys crush the ball when they make contact. Both guys strike out a little bit this year, but struck out a lot more last year. Patrick Wisdom, it's only 35 plate appearances this year. We'll see if he's even in the lineup, but he is a typically platooned in against a lefty. Significant range for strikeout upside against Patrick Wisdom here, but there is a little bit of power potential. 8.37 to lead the team in the home run model. 8.14 for Morel, who's got 9 home runs on the season, a 216 ISO. Wisdom's got 2 homers and a 345 ISO in his 35 plate appearances. Cody Bellinger shouldn't sweat lefty. I'm pretty sure Cody's pretty good against lefties. I mean, I'll pull that out. Again, Chris Sale's just good against everybody, right? So if we're gonna sweat lefty against any lefty, Chris Sale's at least very high up that list. But I remember Bellinger being decent against lefties. Not far off. Career 254, 325, 463 compared to a 259, 345, 07 on the other side. A 209 ISO versus a 204 or 248 rather. Creating runs 11% better than average versus 23% better than average over the course of his career. So, totally playable Bellinger for 5,000, 3,400. He's even a little bit cheap on DraftKings. And then the top two guys, again, Horner gets on base, steals some bases. This stolen base total should go up if he continues to get on base. And Suzuki's just got a lot of talent with the bat, gets on base, delivers a solid average, hits the ball very hard when he makes contact. A little bit more power upside maybe than he's shown, at least extra base hit upside, maybe push that ISO up a little bit more. But he's creating runs 31% better than average over his 83 plate appearances. He was good last year, hit 20 home runs, 285, 357, 485, a 200 ISO. So I think there's upside for Suzuki there as well. These two guys at the bottom of the lineup, a little bit more skippable. John Gomes, once upon a time, hit for a little bit of power. He's got 2 home runs this season. Nick Madrigal, put the ball in play and hope you get to first base and get some help from your friends type. The Braves lineup, let me pop it in here real quick. Acuna, Albies, Ozuna, Olsen, and Darno up here. Harris, Arcia. All right, so that's just a straight trade of those two. So Darno just climbing the lineup, get a little bit more power up there. Arcia, Kelenic, and Short. All right, so it's not that different. Just swap those two players. So we probably just gained a little bit of home run upside in the model. I don't know what Darno was at a minute ago when he was down here, but that's probably gone up given the move to the 5 spot in the lineup. Kind of like that for him, just 4,100 on DraftKings. Again, when we talk about one-off catcher potential for cheap prices, we're always looking for a guy in the top half of the lineup. So that puts Darno in play for that, and he was already on the board with his power. 5 home runs on the season, a 258 ISO and 106 plate appearances. Makes significant contact at the plate, especially for a backup catcher. But for a catcher, period, Travis d'Arnaud is very good. 41-29 across sites. Playable in stacks with Matt Olson if you wanted to use both of those positions on FanDuel. Obviously, they're playable on DraftKings together. An underpriced Matt Olson, too. 5,200 is cheap on DraftKings. 3,200 is super cheap on FanDuel. He's at just 209, 319, 367, a 95 WRC plus, a 158 ISO. But he's a monster left-handed power hitter going up against Jameson Taillon here, who at the very least is going to let him make contact with the ball more often than not. And when he makes contact, he is still murdering the ball. 13.3% barrels. It's diminished a little bit from last year, but it's on track with the year before, and it's still an excellent barrel rate. 57.1% hard hits in the 163 plate appearances is the highest point of these last 2 years. I mean, not the highest for the full sample. God knows what it was over 163 plate appearances last year. It might have been 60-something, but you get me. Ozuna has been one of the best players in baseball since like the middle/start of last year. 307 ISO is ridiculous. A 192 WRC plus. Tremendous player. 5,400, 4,100, totally justifiable. Probably a little bit cheap on DraftKings considering the contact, the home runs, the triple slash, just everything about what he's been doing. Ozzy Albies a premium option at second base. 3 homers, 2 steals. He missed a little time. 116 WRC plus. Everything's going to round into more Ozzy Albies-like form. The contact has been missing a little bit so far this season. 4.8% barrels down. It's basically halved and missing about 16 points of hard hit rate. I like the upside for Ozzy Albies. And then Acuna at the top of the board, as we know. 6,200. The price is down by $300 on DraftKings. It's down by about $500 on FanDuel. You're getting him cheap. He's still creating runs. The ISO is ridiculous for who this player is at just 100. The barrel rate is basically cut in half. He's lost some hard hits. He's striking out significantly more. That's where most of the power is probably gone. Walking at a better rate. That's what's keeping him alive. 253, 364, 353. But it is still Ronald Acuna. I have more faith in him rounding into form than basically anyone else in the league that's struggling right now. So no issues with it. Harris, Arcia, both easily playable options from the 6 and the 7 spot. Harris is cheap at 42.28 for what his talent upside is. Multi-category contributor, home runs, steals. I like Harris a lot in the outfield. Heavily rotated player with the top 5 if you're building a bunch of Brave stacks. Same with Arcia, 3,500, 2,900. He's come around a little bit. He's up 4 home runs, a 163 ISO. Still just an 89 WRC plus, scuffling in the triple slash, but he's better than this. Jared Kelenic down to 274, 322, 393. He does have 2 home runs now. He was missing his first home run over like his first 80 plate appearances. So the power's arrived a little bit, making decent contact with the ball. Just starting to look a little bit more like the Jared Kelenic we've seen over the last couple of seasons, who didn't really deliver on his promise. Zach Short, kind of an afterthought at the bottom, but he is very cheap if you need to turn the lineup over with a cheap wraparound. Braves bats, big yes. Chris Sale, big yes. Taillon's pretty much a no, outside of maybe a couple value darts on DraftKings in a very shaky spot. Cubs bats is a contrarian option, at least on the board, given their talent. Travis Wyndham's here. What's up, Trav? Travis Duarte and Travis Wyndham. Hanging out. A little bit less chatter in the chat today. I don't know if our guy, I forget what his name was, but our guy from yesterday who did a lot of talking and stirred things up in chat. If you're out there, say hi. But we got a solid 55 people watching. Hit the little thumbs up there. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Steven Leibowitz popped into the room. Hola, Steven. What's going on, pal? Thank you for hitting the like button on my tweet earlier today, Steven. I appreciate that. I can thank Steven because he was like the only one. You know, those likes are few and far between on Twitter when I send those out, those retweets. Follow the @rotoscouts Twitter handle. If you get a chance, if you see something pop up, and I am not asking you to subscribe to social media, please. I think we should burn all of those social media companies to the ground. But if you happen to be scrolling through, you see something pop up from Rotoscouts, just give it a little, it's just a thumb movement. Give it a little heart. Give it a little retweet if you get the chance. Help spread the word. Help other people find us and get to the projections and everything. RC Player, you're the man, pal. Welcome. Appreciate that. Thank you. If you're in the Discord, WNBA projections are in the basketball channel. Very, very rough. First draft. Never played WNBA. Couldn't have named more than 2 or 3 of those teams. But I slapped together a model this afternoon for you. I'll get regular NBA. Regular, that sounds wrong. I'll get NBA projections up after this show is done. Those just take a minute or two. Kind of know what I'm doing with those ones, so I can rush through them with just 2 games, especially for these playoff rotations. Anyway, Twins lineup is confirmed. Let's see if we got the Yankees lineup. I do think Carlos Rodon at 8,000, 9,100, totally playable here. Just not the top end spot of the day. And obviously this Twins lineup has been pretty decent in some spots. And Rodon is a gettable enough starter. So it's certainly not my favorite. Oh, wait, I got this. I was looking for the Yankees. Certainly not my favorite starter of the day. But if I'm building 150, he's probably at least in the pool. And we'll probably get to some of them. If he's under-owned on the grand scale, it's a spot where it wouldn't be completely nuts to hit the gas a little bit. He's good enough to beat this Twins team, and he's good enough to find some strikeout upside against them. 21.1% strikeout rate for this team so far this year. Same group of hitters that was in, as far as everybody that was in the majors, 21.3% last year. There's, I think, a little bit of additional strikeout hiding with some of these guys, but it's a little back and forth, though, because you get like Manny Margot, 22.6 versus 16.4 in a larger sample, 16.1, 15.8. A little bit higher up at the top, especially Ryan Jeffers was at 27.8 last year, down to 19.3 this year. He's been excellent so far this season. Wasn't bad last year at 276, 369, 490. He had 14 home runs and 335 at 213 ISO. Created runs 38% better than average. Over 140 this year. He's improved the triple slash. The ISO's gone up to a ridiculous level that will definitely cool, but he's already hit 9 home runs. He's already, well over halfway to last year's total in just 140 plate appearances. And he's getting leadoff plate appearances as a catcher, which is pretty dynamite when we're looking for high-end catchers. There's him. There's the Contrerases who hit, typically second. Adley Rutschman is typically hitting second. But that's a very good spot. For 4,800, 3,800, you can see 7.53 in the home run model. Not a bad option to one-off as a catcher. Definitely in play if you're stacking up Twins. Rodon, for what it's worth, 23.1% strikeouts on the season. Stuff Plus still loves him. The arsenal is still good. It's just been a little bit of mixed results. But overall, we're looking at... I put him in Paddock out of order. That's why I couldn't find him. I usually do the home starter and then the away starter. just the way that I paste these in for some reason, but I reversed these two guys. Last time out, 6 1/3, gave up just 2 earned runs on 7 hits, struck out 7. That was against Houston. Pretty solid strikeout total against Houston. Had the messy game, 4 innings against Baltimore, gave up 3 home runs, 6 strikeouts in that one, but 7 total runs, 6 earned runs on 8 hits. Ouch. Against Milwaukee, 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, 7 innings, just 4 strikeouts in a disappointing game against Oakland. Limited strikeout output, a couple of short starts early in the season. But he was rounding into form as far as depth goes. Outside of that lousy 4-inning start, he went at least 6 in 3 of his last 4. 6 1/3 in the last one, 6 innings against the Brewers and 7 innings against the Athletics. So the depth is there. The upside is there. I think Carlos Rodon's ceiling is higher than the average player that would be projected around here. But there is a little bit of a basement for him as well. Carlos Correa, 4,200. Okay output over 95 plate appearances. Has never stopped hitting the ball hard, even when he's scuffled. Doesn't really strike out. Does draw some walks. He struck out more last year, but this is not crazy hard to believe for Carlos Correa. The walks are up a little bit. 275, 379, 425. Last year, 18 home runs. Kept them alive a little. Year before that, though, 291, 366, 467, 22 homers, a 140 WRC+. I mean, Carlos Correa was at one point a star and one of the very best shortstops at the plate in baseball. So for 4,200 against a mid-level version of Carlos Rodon who's given up some power and some premium contact, it's definitely playable. This would be the compelling reason, too, to keep the Twins in mind as a playable option. Look at all these righties. And look at all the premium contact here. 44.4% hard hits on a fly ball trajectory. 10.5% barrels. 90-plus miles an hour of exit velo. That's like the magic formula that we're looking for. Anything 40-plus here, anything 90-plus there, 10-plus here, equals some home runs. He's given up some, but arguably he's gotten away with a lot of premium contact. 3 home runs in that Orioles game, 1 in the 2 games on either side of that one. Had a stretch of 3 games where he gave up none, gave up 2 to the Diamondbacks early in the season, and then none against the Astros in his first start. But gettable enough. Willie Castro's been up and down, had a really strong surge. Cooled a little bit over the last week after I picked him up in the Dynasty League, but still sitting at 272, 333, 456, 126 WRC+. Hitting the ball at a decent clip, 7.1% barrels, 35.7% hard hits is up a little bit for him. Definitely a lot of speed. Stolen base upside for sure. He swiped 33 bags in 409 plate appearances last year. Hit just 9 home runs. We're a third of the way there in a small sample. Jose Miranda, more of a bat-on-ball, contact-oriented hitter. Does have 2 home runs this season, a stolen base, a 159 ISO, creating runs 19% better than average. Low strikeout rate, low walks, a lot of balls in play. It's always interesting. 2,800, third base and first base on FanDuel, third base only for 31 on DraftKings. Very much in play. Manny Margot, every time I say he's mostly here for defense, he goes out and does something to put a couple points on the board, but it's amounted to 1 home run and 2 stolen bases, so I guess I probably only said that twice this year. Let's make it 3 times. I challenge Manny Margot to have a good day today. 2,900, 2,400. He does get playing time against lefties. He is a platoon bat in this lineup, but over time, Manny Margot is more of a defensively oriented player. Carlos Santana has come to life a little bit. 7 home runs, a 197 ISO now. A lot of this is coming on the heels of me saying that he's looking a little bit done at the plate. He's really surged back to life over the last 2 weeks. 8.5% barrel rate, 40.6% hard hits is up from last year. It's closing in on where he was 2 years ago. He's not striking out that much. That's in line with career expectations. The walks are actually a little bit down. But if the power's back for real, he's interesting at 2,800, 3,800 against this pitcher. Actually, what are Santana's splits over? Kind of interested in that now. Is he better righty or lefty? I can't remember. Career. Much better hitter as a lefty, as a righty against a lefty, but much more power output as a lefty against a righty. 199 ISO in that situation with a 111 WRC+. but a 226, 346, 425 triple slash. Against righties, against lefties rather, as a righty, this situation for his career, 276, 375, 446. That's a pretty good triple slash. The ISO goes down to 170, but he does create runs 25% better than average in this situation. 81 of his career home runs have come versus lefties as a righty. 227 of his career home runs have come on the other side of splits. Take it for what it's worth. So I guess that kind of equals a draw in my mind since his hit tool goes up a little bit in this situation. But he has, again, surged to life a little bit, and he's not inept for power against the lefty. Farmer for 22-23, triple position eligible on FanDuel. Hasn't done anything for us this year, but we definitely got away with 11 home runs from him for cheap prices from the bottom of the lineup last year. A little bit of pop. Hasn't barreled anything, hasn't hit anything hard this year. It's been pretty rough for Kyle Farmer, but low strikeouts, drawn some walks. A mix and match part. Christian Vasquez, 28-24, 1 home run, sub Mendoza on the season. Little rough. Austin Martin at the bottom, 216, 284, 338, and 81 WRC plus over 81. You probably want to focus mostly top 6, and it's really 6 and then 4 through 1 for me anyway. And I mix and match some Margot and Farmer through those. On the Yankee side, going up against Chris Paddock, Paddock's got a 22.2% strikeout rate. He hasn't really walked that many at just 4.8. 4.34 ERA with a 3.50 xFIP. Once upon a time, a noteworthy changeup, was a highly regarded young pitcher coming up, and has had some injury issues, has been in and out since his debut back in 2019. He's 28 now, but the sample is overall still somewhat limited. His innings pitched high was at age 23 when he was still with San Diego in 2019. 140 and 2/3 in his rookie year. He was pretty decent that year. 26.9% strikeouts, 5.5% walk rate. For his career, over 72 starts, 372 and 2/3. He's got a 24.1% strikeout, 4.9% walks. That's directly in line with what he's done so far this year. There's no reason to believe that Paddock couldn't continue at about this level, maybe push this to 25, 26 in the right season. Definitely inducing some swinging strikes this year. There are some strikeouts, some gettable hitters in this Yankees lineup for sure. Aaron Judge is one of them. Judge gets a lot of being a little stingy kind of strikeouts. Volpe's definitely gettable for strikeouts. He's improved this year so far, 27.8 down to 22.7. Judge has lowered his a little bit from 28.4, but we've got a large sample to say that Aaron Judge will be 26, 27%. Verdugo's very good at limiting strikeouts. He's been even better so far this year. Stanton's super high strikeouts in all situations. Rizzo's pretty good at limiting them, but is down a little bit year over year. You can see last year this same group of hitters was at 22%. So I think there's enough upside for some, a 6 strikeout game from Paddock wouldn't be totally crazy. As mentioned at the top, over 5 1/3 against Seattle. He struck out 10 in his last start, gave up a solo home run, but that was it. 8 hits total. 6 strikeouts, only 2 hits allowed, no runs, over 6 against Boston. Only 2 strikeouts against the Angels was a weird one. He gave up 4 earned runs on 8 hits, just went 5. Struck out 10 against the White Sox. 7 shutout innings, gave up 6 hits. So pretty effective starts. There are some bad teams on that list, and some of the better starts came against some of the more gettable teams. So it's not an ideal spot for Paddock, but at 6,500 on DraftKings, totally justifiable from the bargain bin. It's 9,000 on FanDuel that makes it a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know that he's necessarily all that playable here, just given all the better options. But on DraftKings, that price really stands out. If you're going to the Yankees, which I think is totally justifiable, they're one of the top teams on the board. They're showing, I think they were number 2 overall by the stack rankings. So yet another reason to maybe not consider Paddock. But again, that value price is killer. 3 players over the magic number. A couple other guys within reach of it. Anthony Volpe at the top, 5 home runs, 8 steals, a 124 WRC plus. Doing good things at the plate in amongst some weird swings at bad pitches and some young player struggles. If he starts barreling the ball a little bit more, I think the power spikes nicely. I think the ISO goes up, maybe climbs up to the 180s, 190s kind of a range. The home run total goes up. We'll see what he can maintain in the long term, but a killer spot ahead of Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. Alex Verdugo has been an interesting fit in the cleanup spot, putting a lefty bat in the mix with those hitters. Kind of lefty righty throughout the entire Yankees lineup now, which is great. That wasn't how they were configured over the last few seasons. Verdugo doesn't strike out, puts the ball in play a ton. 243, 329, 397 with 5 home runs, a 111 WRC plus. Very playable part for just 4,000, 3,100. Both of these guys are obviously stars. I skipped over them because I think they're somewhat obvious. They're both well over the home run mark. 10 homers on the season for Judge. He's quickly rounding into form. Up to a 148 WRC plus, a 261 ISO. The average will climb. The on-base will climb even further than this, but he's looking a lot more like Aaron Judge recently. The premium contact numbers are rounding into form, so no reasons to skip Judge. Stanton swings harder than anybody in baseball and does it more frequently than anybody in baseball. A lot of strikeouts, but when he makes contact, the ball travels. 4,600, too cheap on DraftKings. 3,200, right about right on FanDuel. Love the upside for power. Always on the board for a 2-home run day. Just one of those players. Rizzo, 4,600, 3,200. A little bit cheap for his talent. 265, 337, 432 over 172. Creating runs 25% better than average. Up to 7 home runs. A little bit of lefty pop. A lot of ability to avoid strikeouts, get on base. Really like Anthony Rizzo. Gleyber Torres continuing to struggle. 69 WRC plus. It's been a problem. I still believe in the talent, but everything has been really diminished this year. The strikeouts are back down. The walks aren't where they were last year. He's not making any kind of good contact. A little bit concerned about Gleyber. Austin Wells I like a lot. 12.5% strikeouts with 16.3% walks, putting bat on ball pretty effectively. It's only amounted to 200, 325, 323, oddly. 1 home run, 1 stolen base. But if he continues to do this with that, the rest of this will go up. Ozzy Cabrera, John Birdie, either way, playable parts in the third base spot. Birdie, I think, offers multi-position eligibility. He's got some stolen base upside, a little bit of contact skill. Ozzy Cabrera, 252, 295, 390, 97 WRC plus. He's hit a few key home runs. He's been more highlighted than he's been good this season, I think, but a little bit of odd, unexpected output to start the year over 132. So Yanks, pretty much playable from top to bottom as the second-ranked team, given all the power, and you want to mix in some of these cheaper guys, but even the top end of the lineup, top 4 hitters, if you just wanted to go through those guys, that's an average of just 37.50 on FanDuel. It's an average of, I'll go in the top 5 here, average of 51.60 on DraftKings. A little bit more expensive on DraftKings, but considering who some of those players are, it's not bad. Carlos Rodon is playable. The price is a little higher than I'd maybe wanted on FanDuel, but definitely playable and at a discount for his talent and his ceiling, which is comparable to the top options on the slate. So you get a little bit of a price discount for the ceiling. On DraftKings, that's a significant discount. He's definitely interesting over there. Paddock for 6,500, well on the board. Definite value bargain bin option on DraftKings. 9,000 on FanDuel kind of takes him out of play. I think I'd rather have Rodon on the other side. It's not totally unbelievable that he could succeed in that spot. It's just a very high price with a lot of other similar to better options on the board. Yankees bats yes, Twins bats yes. Yeah, it could be some of that, Lar. Greg's giving credit for for Bregman last night. I'll take it. Who's the best overall player for DFS so far this year? Ellie De La Cruz has to be up there with Mookie and Ohtani. Yeah, no arguments here. Those are some of the most productive guys. Not sure what the... They have that in the salary tab, actually. Do they not? 15.72. Showy. Ohtani, but there's Ellie not far behind. This is by FanDuel, but it would be the same basically on DraftKings. These are their points per game calculations. So Mookie a little bit behind those two. Both of those guys over 15 points per game. Pretty killer. RC Player says, it's funny, this is my daily show now instead of that old company you work for. I wonder why. Love it, buddy. Appreciate you. Quinn Priester, Joe Ross, couple of targetable pitchers, I think. The Pirates aren't showing the same power upside that they did yesterday, but there's still some playable pieces in here for some power upside. There's some capable enough projections, and they come in at a very low price again. So if you believe in the talent, which I do believe in the Pittsburgh talent here with O'Neill Cruz, Brian Reynolds, Jack Suwinski, even disappointing last night, Rowdy Tellez, Jasmine Grandal obviously proved himself a little bit yesterday. So there's enough there to target Joe Ross. For 5,200 on DraftKings, though, Ross has to at least be considered from the bargain bin going up against a Pittsburgh team that has, by and large, really struggled this season. They've got a 24.3% strikeout rate. The same group of hitters, 25.8 last year. I'll see if we've got these lineups so I can use the actuals. Does not look like. Ross, just a 17.9% strikeout rate, a 4.75 ERA with a 4.66 xFIP. I'm never going to completely dislike Joe Ross, but he really hasn't been pitching all that well this season. So I'm not going to really recommend him here outside of just saying there is enough ability to get through 5 clean innings for 5,200 and maybe find the win. And I do prefer the Brewers side to win this game going up against Quinn Priester. Especially in a head-to-head, Joe Ross or Quinn Priester, if Larry C's holding a gun to my head, definitely going Joe Ross in that equation. Only slightly better by stuff plus measurements in the small sample, but a lot more proven ability over the course of time. Priester was a high-end rookie, high-end prospect in the system, but really hasn't delivered so far in his major league experience. Last year in 8 starts, 50 innings, he only had a 15.4% strikeout rate, 11.5% walks, a 7.74 ERA with a 5.13% home run rate, a 5.10 xFIP. This year, over 4 starts, 21 innings, he's only struck out 12.6%. He's improved the ERA significantly. The xFIP is a little bit down. The whip is still high, but it's improved over that. The walks are down a little bit, but he's still giving up a shocking amount of premium contact and power. That's problematic at 49.3% hard hits. It's resulted in a ton of home runs. 1 home run last game, 2 home runs the game before that. That was against Oakland. He struck out just 3, walked 4, gave up 2 homers. 2 earned, though. Only 2 earned runs. That's where the ERA improvement's coming from a little bit. 6-inning start. 6 innings against the Giants was actually a decent start. That's his upside, I think. 6 strikeouts, 1 walk, gave up just 3 hits. That shows that there is a little bit of ability here, but it's pretty low faith, and I don't think we're playing it. Even at 5,700, 7,500, with the Brewers, their ability to create some runs, they've been frisky enough this season. There is some power there. We'll see. Probably no Rhys Hoskins. He was scheduled to go for an MRI today, so I would be very surprised if Hoskins is in the lineup. But I think there's enough here for the Brewers to put a beating on Quinn Priester here. So I'm not getting there at 57 on DraftKings. I'm definitely not getting there at 75 on FanDuel. Looking at the Brewers lineup, this is the projected version. Bryce Turang, 16 steals on the season, 294, 358, 412. Killer option in the leadoff spot. He's been very, very good this year. Low strikeout rate, low enough, average-ish kind of a walk rate. A lot of balls in play, not a ton of hard hits. It's not his game. But one of those bat on ball, contact with speed, ability to get on base, steal you a base, correlate with the guys behind him in the lineup. And there are some pretty great guys behind him in the lineup. William Contreras, one of the top catchers in baseball, 5 home runs, 3 steals, 354, 433, 528, a 60.6% hard hit rate, dominating the top of those new StatCast boards that we were looking at yesterday. Just looks like a killer option. 58, 4,000. You're paying full freight for the talent. I mean, it's not at a discount. It's not a surprise to anybody. But 12.35 in the home run model, pretty solid. Yelich, 9.63 in the home run model. Tons of well-struck balls from him over the past few seasons, even as people worry about him being diminished. 350, 418, 650. Just got back from injury a couple games ago. 68 plate appearances on the season. He was crushing before he went out. Willy Adames, 47.36. A little bit cheap still on DraftKings at 47. Considering 7 home runs, 7 stolen bases, a 200 ISO, 125 WRC plus to start the season over 181. He's been very good. This is one of the better stretches of Willy Adames' career. Frelick for 38.28 is playable. He's in the mix with these guys, but more often than not, I'm looking down toward Gary. Can't play Contreras and Gary together on DraftKings, but you can on FanDuel with a lack of a high-end first baseman. Apologies to Jake Bauer, who is playable here at first base. He's also got outfield eligibility. No first base only option, so you can play those two guys together with a lot of faith. Gary's got a ton of home run upside. He's got 5 on the season and 77 plate appearances, a 261 ISO. He's another player who just absolutely mashes everything he makes contact with. Deserves more of a shot. I mean, it's kind of unfair what happened to Gary Sanchez over his career. Not the highest end catcher in the world in terms of actually playing the position defensively, but he's always been a good power hitter. Just got some unfair expectations in New York and then just had trouble catching on. But every time he's had 300 plate appearances, he's delivered power upside. He hit 19 home runs and 267 last year with a 275 ISO. Year before, 471 plate appearances. All right, the home runs totaled only 16. ISO was 172. That was a rough one. But more often than not, Gary Sanchez is delivering power upside. He strikes out a lot. He's not a good hitter overall. 232, 312, 493 so far this year. There's definitely power there. For 2,500 on FanDuel, 3,300 on DraftKings, absolutely. Frelick, like I said, is just more contact-oriented and hasn't really done that much so far this year. But there's a little skill there. Last year, he created runs at a 8% less than average clip. Doesn't really put premium contact on the ball. Was better for not striking out and drawing walks last year. That's down a little bit this season. Explains some of his struggles. Bowers does have power upside. 4 home runs, 4 steals, a 127 WRC+, 232 ISO. If he's in the lineup, he's also totally playable. And we'll see what happens with this situation. It might not be both of them in the lineup. We might not get Gary today. Joey Ortiz, a little bit of power upside, multi-position eligible, second and third on both sites, 3,200 on DraftKings, 26 on FanDuel. He's got 3 home runs. He's got a 205 ISO, making decent enough contact with the ball so far. 103 plate appearances. That's good output. Creating runs 34% better than average. Maybe deserves a spot a little higher up in the lineup, honestly. Jackson Chourio, on the other hand, we'll see if he's even in the lineup. 207, 254, 322. Didn't do well last night. Kind of fighting for his job right now, fighting to not get demoted, but one of the most talented prospects in baseball. If you're going to Pirates, it's primarily those 3. Reynolds, O'Neal Cruz, Jack Suwinski. You get the major power upside out of O'Neal Cruz and out of Jack Suwinski. Obviously, Brian Reynolds can hit for power too. He was also, 5 for 5 yesterday, I think, with a home run. 5 homers on the season, 2 steals. O'Neal Cruz didn't get a home run yesterday as the home run pick of the day, which I was pissed about because I was that close to making it Jack Suwinski. Suwinski was the team pick, but not the overall pick. So he was on the board, but I wish I had him as the overall pick. 37-26 for his contact upside. You can see last year, 15.7% barrels, 43.4% hard hits, 12+% barrels the year before that. In 534 plate appearances last year, he hit 26 home runs. A lot of lefty power upside for Jack Suwinski. So he's very cheap for the talent. Out of the leadoff spot, Andrew McCutchen, right at the Mendoza line, 313, 330, 87 WRC+, but productive in spurts, still capable of putting good bat on ball, 16.7% barrels with a tremendous hard hit rate so far this year. So these numbers are a little bit off of what that contact has looked like. There is still upside for Andrew McCutchen in any given slate. Nick Gonzalez is cheap in the heart of the lineup. Hasn't been good over just 13 plate appearances, but maybe a little upside. Rowdy Tellez does have lefty power, 44.3% hard hit rate. Got to forgive him for last night, but I think he can go back there hunting for some left-handed home runs, 7.11 in the home run model. Triolo, playable, capable of getting involved. Hasn't been good so far this year. Jasmani Grandal hit his second home run of the year last night, 318 ISO. I breezed through him too quickly yesterday. What I was looking at yesterday as I did that was I scrolled over this far and I said, yeah, the on base is kind of gone. The triple slash has been dead. He only hit 8 home runs in 405 last year, only hit 5 in 376 the year before. In prior seasons, this is a player I've really liked over time. That's what pissed me off about not having him yesterday. In 2021, 375 plate appearances. We loved him that year. 23 home runs, got on at a 420 clip as a cheap, unpopular catcher. I think that was with the White Sox. 280 ISO that season. That was a big leap from the 194 plate appearances the year before. He had 8 home runs, had a killer on-base percentage still. Going back in time, 28 home runs the year before that, a 380 on-base percentage. Jasmani Grandal was, at one point, a very high-end catcher bat. I'm just really mad that I didn't have him yesterday. Mikey Taylor, definitely a little bit of ability. 21 homers from the late lineup spots for us last year. A DFS option for sure, but really only one if you're stacking up a bunch of Pirates lineups. Brewers bats, Pirates bats. Really neither pitcher, but if I had to, it would be Joe Ross on DraftKings for 52. Larry says, "What did I have something too small?" Sorry. I forget when I'm scrolling over and stretching stuff out what I have to do. I should have done it like this. But apologies. I said it all out loud. Jack Leiter, 14.3% strikeouts in his 2 starts, 7 2/3, 2 messy ones, 4 earned runs, 6 runs total on 7 hits against Oakland. Struck out 3, gave up 2 home runs. 3 2/3 against Detroit. Struck out 3, walked 3, gave up 7 earned runs on 8 hits. In AAA this season, he's made 4 starts, 25 1/3. He's got a 2.84 ERA with a 3.92 xFIP and a 37% strikeout rate to an 8% walk rate in the small sample. Last year in AAA, actually the AA sample is larger. In AA, 19 starts, 81 2/3. Had a 31.3% strikeout rate, but walked 13.4% with a 5.07 ERA and a 4.51 xFIP. Just 24, still trying to find his footing. Nephew of Al, right? Nephew, not son? Pretty sure. There is talent there. There is pedigree there. The price is very, very low. But going up against this Guardians team that, despite what this number says, they are a low strikeout group. And again, the top 5 hitters in the lineup, all the key bats, are very low strikeout. We've just got some high spikes down at the bottom of the lineup. But he needs to get through these guys before he even reaches those guys once, let alone 3 times. So I really don't like the strikeout upside for Jack Leiter. I really think this is a spot where the Guardians can do their thing and just kind of roll him another day for a bunch of hits. Probably a bunch of earned runs. You can see the talent, though, in the Stuff Plus rating at 115. That is a pretty solid number. It's just he's given up a lot of contact in there. 15.2% barrels in the small sample is absurd. So maybe not quite major league ready yet. Wouldn't completely stun me if he had an effective start. It's just not a great matchup for a kid who's not quite there. On the other side, Ben Lively, certainly not my favorite. I think we were targeting him the last time out. Struck out 2. He gave up 3 earned runs on 8 hits over 5 2/3. That was against the White Sox. I guess we weren't targeting him, but I think what it was I said I didn't love him in the spot against the White Sox because I didn't think he was all that good. You can see just a 77.9 in the Stuff Plus model for the full arsenal. He's striking out 23.4% with a 2.63 ERA, but I think this is the more accurate number at 4.19. Giving up 91.2 miles an hour of exit velo with a 42.1% hard hit, 9.2% barrels on a significant fly ball trajectory. That's going to yield more home runs over time. He's given up 2 on the season. They came in his first 2 starts. Hasn't given up 1 in his last 3. Strikeout high of 7 for the season. That came against Boston in his second start over 6 1/3. Capable of 6 innings. You know, if you're rolling a bunch of mid-range shares, I think he's moderately playable down here, but it's going up against Texas, so why would you really want to? I don't think he's as talented as his results have been, so that is, to clarify, that's pretty much a no. I just said I think he's moderately playable, but that's just looking at the price, but there's so many better options. So they just kind of take away his playability. So he's basically a no. 3 guys over the magic number in the Rangers lineup as well. If we're looking for power, that's 3 teams so far. 3 of the higher end teams on the board that have at least 3 guys over their magic number in their respective lineups. Marcus Semien, 7 home runs on the season, a 180 ISO. Corey Seager really struggling with just 4 home runs, 235, 314, 333, but his price is way down for the talent at 55.35. Those are effectively cheap prices. It's not unless he continues to struggle for another 2 months. The prices aren't going to really dip that much further. Nathaniel Lowe is still cheap at 45.31. I've ranted and raved enough about him over the last few shows and the last 96 plate appearances. His career runs 45% better than average, gotten on at a 427 clip over that stretch. The power hasn't really arrived, but everything else looks exactly like Nathaniel Lowe is supposed to. 45 is too cheap, 31 is too cheap. Adolis Garcia, 57.39, 8 home runs, 4 steals. Been in a little bit of a funk. He's down to 247, 297, 449, a 203 ISO. Most of the homers, most of the steals came over the first few weeks, but still premium contact, still a superstar caliber player. Lots of power, lots of speed upside. So any given slate, Adolis Garcia comes roaring back against Ben Lively. Definitely looks like a spot to do it. Not a player I'm leaving out of many Texas stacks. Josh Smith, a playable part, but I don't love him. He's already cooling off a little. The on base is still good. The run creation's been good. But the triple slash is starting to come down, starting to come back to earth a little. 4,028 though, multi-position eligible, definitely a mixer. Jonah Heim, a lot of catcher power, 46-31. It's just we have several catchers up in the top 4 or 5 spots in the lineup, so he loses a little bit comparatively, but he's having a good year so far. 287, 324, 397, creating runs 5% better than average, 4 homers on the season. Jankowski, Duran, and Leody Taveras are at worst mix and match parts down the bottom of the lineup. There's speed for each of those guys. Any one of them is capable of getting a few hits, driving the ball a little bit, maybe coming away with some power. Nice spread of 4 positions for Ezekiel Duran at just 2,300 is appealing. 3,100 at first and outfield. Not the ideal positioning for him. I'd rather have him in one of those infield spots, I think. But it's a cheap enough price for a guy who's been effective, was effective last year with 14 homers, 8 stolen bases, a 107 WRC+. And then Taveras had 14 and 14 last year. Jankowski stole 19 bases in just 287 plate appearances. So if those are the guys at the bottom of the lineup, they're playable. Doesn't look like we've got these in. Yankees lineup is, I think, exactly what we had. Volpe, Soto, Judge, Verdugo, Stanton, Rizzo, Torres, Wells, Cabrera. Brewers, this is an important one, actually. Damn it, no Gary Sanchez. Fuck. Jake Bauers hitting 5th. Turang, Contreras, Yelich, Adames, Bowers, Ortiz, Frelick, Dunn, Oliver Dunn in at DH instead of Gary Sanchez. It's a bad choice. I'm sorry, but that's dumb. That's a bad choice. Let Gary get that spot. Whatever. I'm annoyed. Diminishes the Brewer stack a little bit. Doesn't look like we've got the Guardians yet. If we get this lineup, presumably the top 5 spots are going to be basically this. Again, very low strikeout. A lot of low walk rates in that group too, so just constant contact from these guys. Use constant contact if you're doing your email marketing. A little promo there. Maybe a little hook on as a sponsor. When you're thinking Guardians, think constant contact. 3,400, 3,000 for Tyler Freeman, especially if he's leading off. There's enough ability, at least in what he's supposed to be. A low strikeout rate. He's only at 188, 289, 333, but it is a good spot in the lineup, and he's got more talent than that. He's got a really well-regarded hit tool overall. Just hasn't really come around yet. Andres Jimenez, 52, 3,000, 2 home runs, 5 steals, 96 WRC+, capable of driving the ball, definitely capable of getting on base and setting the table. He's just been okay so far this year, but for 3,000, 5,200 ahead of Josh Naylor, Jose Ramirez, pretty reasonable. Ramirez for 6,000, 4,000, appropriately priced for his talent. He's up to 9 home runs and 7 steals at 212 ISO. The average in the on-base will come around, still creating runs 10% better than average. Naylor's making tremendous contact, 5,400, 3,800. He's got 11 home runs, one of the top-end home run hitters so far this year. 281 ISO, 150 WRC+. He's been great. 35-26 for Will Brennan, 4 home runs, 2 steals. Adequate output, 89 WRC+ isn't good. Some hard hits, but not a ton of barrels. Not a lot of strikeouts, though. Balls in play. I'll take it for $26.35. He's appropriately priced to be a part of this top end. Kyle Manzardo at $2,200, $2,300. Difficult with the first base only eligibility for him and Naylor. And obviously they're positionally blocked on DraftKings. I don't know how many times I want Manzardo in there occupying my util spot with Naylor at first base on FanDuel. I wish Naylor maybe had outfield eligibility like he did last year. That would be more appealing to play those guys together. But Manzardo is a very highly regarded prospect. Over 20 plate appearances, he hasn't been great yet this year. But that's just 20 plate appearances. He was raking in AAA before his call-up. Esteban Florial, 3 home runs, 2 steals. Interesting enough for counting stats. He's got a 226 ISO in that small sample. He's driven the ball very effectively. It's only a moderate number of batted ball events, period, and he's only hitting 202, 264, 429. But considering the ability to strike the ball, there's probably upside there. Bo Naylor is a cheap catcher option with a little bit of power, 3 home runs, but it allows you triple slash. And then Brian Rocchio mostly here for defense. Rangers bats, Guardians bats, but they're really close to one another, and I think both of the pitchers are targetable with bats. I don't really think I want either of these pitchers. Jack Leiter's a pretty firm no. Lively would be maybe the more arguable of the two, but I really don't think we're getting there, especially not at 88 on FanDuel. That's nonsense. At 75 on DraftKings is where the discussion maybe is. But again, you're dealing with so many better options. Oakland, Houston. Here's Ronel Blanco. So one of the reasons I say that I think Ronel Blanco, with all his great starts, over 7 starts, he's got a 2.23 ERA, but a 4.21 xFIP. He's got a 102 WHIP, which is dynamite. Swinging strike rates at 12.2%, but only a 26.1% CSW. 23.3% strikeouts is a little bit low for that swinging strike rate. And the reason is he's not throwing enough called strikes. He's also walking 11.4%. Between the mediocre CSW, the xFIP being where it is in the mid-4s, especially the super high walk rate, the fact that Stuff Plus doesn't love the arsenal over 7 starts, I do think that the end of the line is going to come at some point, and he'll just kind of revert back to a league average-ish kind of a guy. Maybe not. Maybe he'll continue to outperform the talent. Some guys do it. Some guys get away. Like we saw Shota Imanaga's arsenal was slightly below average for the full arsenal by Stuff Plus, but his splitter is one of the best pitches in baseball. It leads all of baseball in whiff rate. So if you have one dynamite effective pitch, and I haven't looked specifically at Blanco's arsenal to see where every pitch rate's out over Stuff Plus. We can do that if you guys want to. But reason to expect a return, kind of a regression for him. He hasn't given up more than 3 earned runs on the season, and he only did that once. That was over 6 innings against Seattle. He struck out 6, walked 2. He did give up 2 home runs in that game. 5 hits total, 3 earned runs. Every other game he gave up, in 4 of his last 5 games, he's given up 2 earned runs, and then he gave up 3 earned runs in that one. That was the 5th out of that sample. Had the no-hitter to start the season and went 6 innings with 1 hit, no earned runs in the next start against the Rangers. Has been demonstrably good. Has a ridiculously low-end opponent tonight with a ton of strikeouts available for him. Yeah, there's a little bit of power in this lineup. Yeah, it's a little interesting. I think somebody said we had it, and Geloff is in it. Geloff is in it. Love it. All right. Let's look what the actual lineup looks like. So, I mean, this is partly to say that Ronel Blanco is both playable and I think a little bit targetable as a value stack, as a somewhat contrarian stack. I don't think the A's are off the board. It's not like a, boy, this really looks right to me kind of a spot like Pittsburgh was yesterday. But I could explain it. Like I said, I did click these guys into place. I didn't end up going with it just because 2 better teams fit together pretty well in the lineup that I ended up building. But these guys were in consideration, and they are very, very cheap. Brent Rooker's been rolling. He strikes out a ton. He's drawing more walks. He's swinging at and missing at fewer pitches in the zone so far this year, which is the key improvement that he needed to make. Over 125 plate appearances, he had 303, 392, 642, and that includes a brutal first 2 weeks. 339 ISO, 10 home runs, a 194 WRC plus. Still only costs $4,200 on DraftKings. FanDuel's got it right at $34. This is a very cheap price just for the power upside. Brent Rooker's a playable one-off. Again, Blanco has given up at least 1 home run in each of his last 4 starts. 2 home runs in the start against the Mariners. Only a 2.84% home run rate for the entire season, but he's not unhittable as far as home runs go. Geloff, when we last saw him, was at 196, 260, 337. Pretty rough start to the year, over 101. Was very good over 300 plate appearances last year. 14 homers, 14 steals, 237 ISO. Creator runs 33% better than average. On talent, I think Zach Geloff's probably the best player in this lineup. Abraham Toro at 37-28, triple position eligible from the leadoff spot on FanDuel is not uninteresting. He's got 4 home runs, 2 steals, 133 WRC plus, ability to make premium contact. Last year in, that's just 21 plate appearances. He had 10 home runs in 352, just a 185, 239, 324 2 years ago. He's been a player who's been popped onto the DFS radar from time to time with a little bit of ability to drive the ball. He's had some key home runs in spots. But this is probably the best stretch we've seen him, over 153 plate appearances. He's very, very cheap at second base. Unfortunately, positionally blocked with Geloff on DraftKings. If you need the discount, taking Toro out of the leadoff spot is probably the better of the 2 options, but Geloff is the more talented player. On FanDuel, that configuration doesn't matter. You also have 2 catchers in this lineup on DraftKings. I think the A's are going to end up being more playable on FanDuel, given the 2 catchers, the 2 second basemen in the lineup. You do have positional. I'm sorry, it's 3 catchers, but you do have positional flex on Soderstrom at least. 3 straight up catchers in the FanDuel version of the lineup. So you can't play those 3 guys together on FanDuel. You can get 2 of them though. You can get 2 out of the 3 as long as one of them Soderstrom for 2,200 on DraftKings. It's a wacky lineup. Soderstrom is a highly regarded prospect. Does have a little bit of ability with the bat. Last year over 138 though, we didn't see much of it. .080 ISO, a 35 WRC plus in his cup of coffee. Did hit 3 home runs as a cheap source of a little bit of lefty power maybe. These 2 guys are up and comers. Shea Langoliers is solidly locked in as a low output overall, but significant output for power kind of a hitter. 9 home runs on the season, 286 ISO in 139, making tremendous contact and always has. Just a lot of swing and miss in his game. Kyle McCann seems like the more skippable of the 3 catchers, but he's actually been out to a good start over 39 plate appearances. Just not sure what the overall talent is going to end up looking like. Tyler Nevin, first and outfield eligible for cheap pricing, first, third, and outfield on FanDuel. He's been all right, over 123 plate appearances, creating runs above average. Look at all the positive WRC plus marks for the A's this year. A couple small samples in there, but a couple growing samples. It's pretty good. Average is 142 WRC plus. We'll take out that one. Like that, right? Like that, and then these 2. That group of hitters is at 123, the guys who have gotten more regular playing time, taking Soderstrom and McCann out of the equation. The A's have been a little bit frisky. They got a little bit of power. They don't run that much. A couple of these guys can, Geloff especially. J.D. Bleday is playable from the left side for 36.27 if you just need to stick a lefty in there with a little bit of upside for power. Not great for premium contact, but capable of hitting home runs. He's got 5 on the season with a 193 ISO. Max Schumann is cheap at the bottom of the lineup if you're wrapping somebody around. He's been productive enough over 62. The Astros with basically the new configuration everyday version of the lineup. Jeremy Pena hitting cleanup. Bregman 5th after the double dong day. He's still just 4,000, 2,500. Obviously there's upside there. 218, 288, 327. Rough start to the season. Not putting bat on ball well, but maybe some signs of life, finally. As we've said a number of times, the fact that he's still just striking out at 12.3 and walking at 9.2 definitely keeps him interesting enough. So if you're stacking Astros, you definitely get some Alex Bregman for very cheap. He helps lower the cost of the other guys on the lineup. Pena's been much better than Bregman this year, 338, 381, 465, creating runs 45% better than average, 4 homers, 6 steals. Looks more like the guy from 2 years ago when he first replaced Carlos Correa. Jordan Alvarez is a 5 or 6 game hit streak going. The output's still been a little bit down. The premium contact has been down a little bit, but he's going to round into form. I'm confident. 189 ISO, 125 WRC plus. He hasn't been far off the mark. 8 home runs on the season. Kyle Tucker's obviously surpassed him with 13 home runs and 6 stolen bases. Not surpassed him on the whole as a hitter, but so far this year. Same 13.6% barrel rate out of the 2 big lefties. Almost matching projections on both sites. They go hand in hand with one another, and they're facing JP Sears. And as I've said a number of times this year and said a bunch of times last year, you do not sweat. Out of every lefty in the league, these are the 2 guys you sweat the least in a lefty-lefty, even against better lefties than JP Sears. Sears is totally gettable. I like the talent when he's facing other, weak teams. If he was facing, let's say, the White Sox today, we might be looking at him. But against these Astros, just a 17% strikeout rate this year, 4.20 ERA with a 4.55 xFIP. He's given up a decent amount of premium contact and power, too. 43.8% hard hits, 91.1 miles an hour of exit velo. Last time out, he gave up 2 home runs. He gave up 3 home runs in a game, 2 starts before that to the Orioles. Another 2 home run game earlier in the season against Detroit. All the other starts, no home runs. Decent strikeout totals in some of them. Last season, he had a better strikeout rate at 21.9%, but similar output for power, runs allowed. So why do it against the Astros? Even at 61 on DraftKings, seems like a stretch. He is in the bargain bin. I wouldn't completely rule him out. I wouldn't take him out of the player pool, but I would definitely make sure I'm not getting to too much JP Sears at that price, and there are better bargain bin options. Continuing through the Astros lineup, Jose Altuve, obviously a star at the top of the lineup, doesn't strike out, draws some walks, hits for power, 7 home runs, 7 stolen bases, a 152 WRC plus so far this year. He's a killer. Jainer Diaz, 4,000, definitely playable on DraftKings as a one-off catcher. Obviously playable in stacks with the other Astros. He's tremendous at not striking out. He also doesn't draw that many walks. So again, a lot of balls in play. With his ability to generate hard hits, he's an interesting bat. 270, 304, 392, and 98 WRC plus. I like that to go over the league average. 3 home runs on the season. I like that to go up as things continue. John Singleton, a little bit of lefty power for a cheap price at first base. Jake Myers, somebody in chat called Jake Myers for the home run today. He's at 4.43 in the model, 3 on the season, but a 205 ISO. Makes very good contact at the plate so far this year. Not so much last year, a little bit better the year before. At 3,000, 2,400, you're building a bunch of Astro stacks. I won't begrudge you the Jake Myers play. Mauricio Dubon with 4 positions on FanDuel, 2,400, kind of interesting. Just another outfielder at 3,200 on DraftKings, though. Ronel Blanco is a yes, but I don't love him at those high prices. It's not really a direct hedge situation. Like, I think you can absolutely take Ronel Blanco shares and not hedge the other side with the A's. But I do, on their own, just kind of independent of any investment in Ronel Blanco, I do think the A's are frisky enough, especially getting Geloff back, that they're playable as a value stack here. They're showing a little bit of power. There's upside enough. They got Geloff, one of their best players, back. Not an unappealing stack today. I'm going to go back and look at them again, especially Geloff's only 2,800 on FanDuel. That's kind of interesting. See if they can go together in a different order. But again, some weird positioning in that team. Astros bats, A's bats, Ronel Blanco in kind of in the middle, and JP Sears mostly off the board outside of a few just close your eyes and hope value darts on DraftKings. The shockingly disappointing St. Louis Cardinals. What's up, Mamba? Mamba's here. Travis Darte's looking for one-offs of Bakers and Bowers. Probably just meant Bowers. Travis, that isn't bad. Kind of like the sound of that. Minnesota, Oakland. Again, Minnesota. I mean, it depends on who's in it, but I like Oakland as a contrarian option like we just talked about. I think Minnesota, enough upside. I do like Rodon. I think he's got a clear ceiling, but I also think he's got a pretty clear cellar. So, yeah, if Minnesota gets to him, that's an interesting spot. And obviously, dynamite pitching combination there. Very curious what's in that lineup. Wong's batting third because he's been awesome this season. He makes killer contact. Gonna make me go all the way back to the first game. We talked about this already. Connor Wong has always made good contact. 11.8% barrels, 32.4% hard hits. 2 years ago in a small sample, 9.1, 37.8 last year in 403 plate appearances. He only hit 9 home runs, but he was squaring the ball up, delivering a lot of premium contact. And this year it's kind of come together for him. Over 99 plate appearances anyway. He's got 5 home runs, a 204 ISO, creating runs 56% better than average, 344, 374, 548. He has earned that spot in the lineup right now. The actual answer is because Tristan Casas and Masataka Yoshida are both out with injuries. But in this configuration of the lineup, he's kind of earned that spot. You probably want Tyler O'Neill after Rafi Devers instead of before him as well. Anyway, Cardinals. They've been awful. The Angels, pretty bad too. It doesn't look like Labs has either of these lineups yet. It's annoying. Reed Detmers for 83-82 projects out well enough against a significantly scuffling Cardinals lineup. They do have a couple of right-handed power hitters that over time have been tremendous in splits, mostly Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. Goldie really, really struggling, 199, 284, 278, 67 WRC plus, not really making great contact. Arenado hit his 3rd home run of the season last night. A lot of these guys have 3 home runs exactly. Nolan Gorman leads the team with 5. But we've got a collective WRC plus. I'll leave out the negative 57. It seems unfair. But for the guys who actually have some, actually I'll leave out the 10 also. The guys who have some plate appearances here, that's an average WRC plus of 95. One of the lower run scoring teams in the league, one of the lower power output teams in the league. Gettable for strikeouts, 24% strikeout rate for this version of the lineup. Last year, same collection of hitters, 21%. So maybe it's a little bit high this year, but still at least, league average-ish. Detmers does have the 26.1% strikeout rate, 4.96 ERA, but a better 3.72 xFIP. 13.6% swinging with a 29.3% CSW. No reason to believe that Reed Detmers couldn't succeed here. 5 strikeouts, gave up 6 earned runs on 7 hits to Kansas City in his last start. News for people in that part of the country, the Royals are better than the Cardinals. 7 strikeouts in the game before that, allowed 3 home runs in that one. He gave up 2 home runs in the game against the Royals. So that's not great. 5 home runs in his last 2 starts, but it was against the Guardians the start before that. 7 strikeouts against the Guardians is good. Walked 4, pretty problematic start. Gave up 5 earned runs in 5 innings to the Twins. Gave up 4 earned runs in 7 innings to the Orioles. Struck out just 3 and 4 in those games. It hasn't been pretty for Reed Detmers. Some good starts at the beginning of the year to keep the numbers alive. I'm just thinking on talent, especially with the price down based on the struggles over the last 4 or 5 starts, and still not awful numbers in terms of the xFIP, the strikeout rate. I think there's upside there. Kind of lurking in the dead middle of the board for a fair price. Not a priority, I don't think, but definitely playable. Sonny Gray on the other side, a little bit higher priority. He's very expensive, but he's near the top of the board. He's fairly ranked with these pitchers. He's fairly priced with those pitchers. I like him better against the Angels than I do Ronel Blanco against the Athletics. I think those are similarly bad teams, and I have more overtime. Ooh, faith is a tough word with Sonny Gray. I have more experience with Sonny Gray over time. Let's put it that way. 6 starts, 35 and a third. He went 5 innings in his most recent outing, 6 strikeouts, gave up 3 home runs in that one. That was a little rough. 6 earned on 7 hits. Prior to that start, he had only given up 1 home run all season, and he'd only given up 3 earned runs all season. The bad start in the last one against Milwaukee over just 5 innings, again, 6 earned runs, pushed him up to a 2.29 ERA, which is not far off the xFIP. The walk rate has been good at 4.3%. Very good, actually. 31.9% strikeouts is spectacular. That's a big leap from where he was over the last 2 seasons. I don't think we've ever had him in the 30s. Again, very small sample. Let's see. Has he ever done 30% for a season? %29 in 2019, 30% in that 30.6% in that short 2020 season. 11 starts, 56 innings. 2019, over 31 starts, 175 innings with Cincinnati. He had a 29% strikeout rate. Had the awful year and a half with the Yankees. 4.90 ERA with a 4.1 xFIP and a 21.1% strikeout rate. Got himself chased right out of town. One of those guys who can't handle New York, apparently. But he's been really good with St. Louis. 10-5, 10-8 against the Angels. Projects out well enough. It's just, with that high a price, there are a couple of guys that exceed him on the board, points per dollar wise. But definitely in the mix, definitely should be involved in your portfolio of 150 lineups. If you're building one, there's nothing at all wrong with going to Sonny Gray in that spot. The Angels, again, have just been really bad. 22.8% strikeout rate across the confirmed version of the lineup. Nolan Shanuel, apparently a very good bat-on-ball, contact-oriented hitter. It's just resulted in 228, 301, 323. I'm going to reserve judgment based on what we now know about the ability to square the ball up. We'll see how it rounds into form. He doesn't strike out that much, capable of drawing a walk, but only a mediocre level of output. 3 home runs, a .094 ISO, 20% worse than average creating runs so far. Hasn't been good, but maybe the tools to be good. Mickey Moniak, outside of a hot stretch to start last year, has been pretty bad overall. Taylor Ward at 49-31 is their best player. 7 home runs, a 114 WRC+. Over 40 plate appearances. Willie Calhoun's looked like what he's supposed to be, or was once upon a time supposed to be. He's still very cheap, 2,600, 3,200 across sites, creating runs 38% better than average in the small sample. But over time, it's never really worked out for Willie Calhoun at the major league level. We'll see. He's every player in this lineup, basically. At least these young guys are in that we'll see bin. There is talent there, but nobody's really put it together. Logan O'Hoppe, a little bit of power upside. 2 home runs, decent triple slash to start the year, right at league average for run creation, over 133. Nico Goodrum, totally skippable. Joe Adell has been very, very good. 7 home runs, 7 stolen bases. This is a very short list of players who have 7 of each so far this year. 131 WRC plus. Presumably he's done it in fewer plate appearances with just 109 plate appearances. 265 ISO. He's looking like the Joe Adell that he's supposed to be. I'd really like to get him up here. It's problematic if he's down there still, just based on the potential plate appearances. But obviously he's been good from down there. Zach Neto, Luis Guillorme, kind of afterthoughts. Neto for counting stats, maybe a little bit of potential. Guillorme is mostly here for defense, if that's the lineup. On the Cardinals side of things, if you're going to them, I'm glad I don't have to strongly recommend them today. The projections are down, the power's down compared to where we saw them yesterday. You've got two guys near the top of the projected lineup. We'll see where Lars Nootbaar hits against the lefty, but a couple guys below the Mendoza line, 3 home runs apiece for those guys. Arenado's been okay in terms of the hit tool, but the power's been way out in terms of premium contact. He did hit his 3rd home run last night, 106 WRC+. Ivan Herrera, their backup catcher filling in for Wilson Contreras, has been putting bat on ball fairly effectively. A 12.1% barrel. He's got 3 home runs, 274, 330, 393. He was getting plate appearances while Contreras was here, and now he's just getting regular playing time. Pedro Pajes also in the projected version of the lineup at the dead minimum at catcher. 0 for 8 so far to start his career. Nolan Gorman does have a ton of power. He led the team for home runs last year. He's down to 3,400, 2,700. He's also down below the Mendoza line, 197, 292, 362, a 90 WRC+. Mason Wynn's been okay, mostly for hit tool correlated scoring ability, but he's getting on base at a 346 clip, 283 average, creating runs 7% better than average. There's just not a lot more than that there. Alec Burleson, similar kind of a hitter. He does have 3 home runs, just a 133 ISO. 42.5% hard hits isn't bad. Maybe a little bit more ability to put bat on ball for premium contact. It's a pretty skippable Cardinals lineup. At best, a deprioritized Cardinals lineup. It's a very skippable Angels lineup. Sonny Gray, definitely in play for a high price. Reed Detmer's probably in play for a fair mid-range price against a scuffling Cardinals lineup. He just hasn't been good at all over his last 4. King of Smack, I'm going to find a way to pay up for Sale Cease, and Blanco might have to pay down for one-off value guys lower than 3K. Just a strategy I use, and it works. Yeah, absolutely nothing wrong with taking value guys, especially when you get good value names up toward the top of lineups or like value stacks. More specifically, I'm always looking for value stacks rather than value individuals. But if you're building on DraftKings and you're looking to book 2 of the expensive pitchers, then yeah, one-offs of value plays, definitely a reasonable enough strategy. Mama saying, all I can confirm for today is that Ellie De La Cruz will have a career day today. Don't know if he already broke the record for stolen bases in a game, but it could happen today. I've already put a parlay for total bases plus stolen bases. Larry C. points out Carl Crawford had like 6 in a game one day. Is that right? The record holder with 7 is Billy Hamilton. But not that Billy Hamilton. 1894 Billy Hamilton. That's funny. 7 in a game. That's wild. I love the spot for Ellie as well. Just to echo what Mamba's raving about in the chat. He's just a tremendous player. I wasn't even thinking in terms of stolen bases necessarily, but Mamba's right about that. And Ellie's got 25 already this season. He's the fastest player in baseball. If you've never watched him round the bases, cue up the Ellie De La Cruz inside the park home run and just enjoy for 12 seconds or whatever it took him to get around the bases. He is ridiculous. Stephen Leibowitz, EMAC won a GPP with Hamilton back then. Ouch. But yeah, I have the Reds in that placeholder lineup. I kind of like drawing with them against Slade Ciccone here. He's been okay. 4.15 ERA, a 4.83 xFIP. Not really great for runs there. Not really good in terms of strikeouts, but around league average at 20.2% over his 21 2/3. He's given up a bunch of home runs at 4.76% over the small sample, but not a ton of premium contact really. 6.8% barrels, 32.2% hard hits. So maybe a little bit of happenstance for a fly ball oriented pitcher, but this is a team that can definitely run into some happenstance against him. They have a decent amount of power in this lineup. So I kind of like the Reds. I love their value pricing. They fit together very interestingly with teams like the Guardians. Some of the other high-end teams on the board. The Astros you could probably get with some red shares. The Yankees I think you can get with some red shares. So they're kind of compelling here. 61.45 for Elliott makes it a little bit harder to fit in with some of those premium teams, and you're sacrificing some shortstops along the way, but he is one of the top options at that position, and the price is totally justifiable. 14.3% barrels, 50.5% hard hits for Ellie. Will Benson scuffling along at the top of the lineup here. Hopefully he's hitting there. Do we have the confirmed? Looks like we got the Diamondbacks, but not the Reds yet. Definitely want Will Benson in that leadoff spot. I really like the talent. He had a good year in a moderate sample of plate appearances last year. In 329, he slashed 275, 365, 498. He had a 223 ISO, hit 11 home runs, stole 19 bases. There's a lot of talent. If you want to call it just, a good raw athlete, whatever you want to say about him, there is a lot of upside there. 191, 284, 374 to start this season over 148 plate appearances. Does have 4 home runs, 8 stolen bases, a respectable enough 183 ISO that should go up given what the premium contact looks like. He's making a lot more premium contact in the small sample than he was last year. So, yeah, the average is low. The on base isn't where we want it, not by a long shot, and he's striking out at a 40.5% rate. But there is a tremendous amount of talent, and in some ways, Will Benson has actually grown as a hitter. You got to look really, really hard to find it, but it's in there. What was I just pulling up? He did have a 391 BABIP last year, so that's worth pointing out. It's down to 313 this year. That's still a good BABIP, and you can see what happened to his triple slash. So there is that to worry about. But a high BABIP is expected with a guy who drives the ball a lot. So, there's give and take in that. Might not ever hit for a tremendous average, but I like the on base to improve a little bit considering the 11.5% walks. Just needs to get back to even this level of strikeouts. It's problematic having these guys back-to-back in the lineup, no doubt, to start an inning. But Ciccone, again, not really the most effective at exploiting strikeouts, just 8.7% swinging, 27% CSW. Strikeout high for the season was 8 against a similarly free-swinging Mariners team. But the other starts just 3, 4, and 2. Going down the Reds lineup, I love these two options. Spencer Steer is talented enough, 4 home runs, 11 steals. Everybody in this lineup has a little bit of power, a little bit of speed. 121 WRC plus. He's been effective, but for 32 on FanDuel, he's more playable, I think, than 52 on DraftKings. If you skip Spencer Steer just to save money in your other red spots, I don't completely hate that. I don't think you're necessarily making a mistake. He is effective. He projects out as one of the better options on the team. He's got an 8.42 in the home run model. There's no reason to directly say, hey, I have to skip Spencer Steer here. And if you're building 30 red stacks, you should probably be in 10, 15 of them at least. But at that price, he is more skippable on DraftKings than some of these other guys. You can just, especially if you're looking at stacking him with another high-end team. Jake Fraley for $4,000, an effective alternative. 2,800 on FanDuel. Over 91 plate appearances, Fraley's at 305, 374, 390. He's created run 17% better than average. He's stolen 7 bases. A little bit of speed, a little bit of power. Low strikeout rate. Knows how to draw a walk. Decent on-base skills. Definitely like Jake Fraley. Tyler Stevenson is a cheap source of power at catcher. He's always been able to hit the ball hard. He's got 4 home runs on the season in 107 plate appearances, a 183 ISO. Last year, hit 13 in 517 with a 135 ISO. That's not that great. 319, 372, 482 triple slash the year before that and 183. But we've seen Tyler Stevenson break slates with power, and I love the premium contact so far this year and 43.2% hard hits last year. Mike Ford, if he's in the lineup, 27-25, at least you're getting a very cheap first baseman on a team that doesn't really have that many alternatives. You get multi-position Candelario, multi-position Spencer Steer on DraftKings to work with at first base. But Ford's in the mix. He's got a little bit of lefty pop. Hasn't shown anything in 20 plate appearances this year. Hit 16 home runs in 251 last year. Had a 247 ISO. That's not bad. 17.3% barrels, 44.6% hard hits. Career journeyman type, but a little bit of home run upside. 9.18 in the model. Sneaky. Could be a Rowdy Tellez over Yashmani Grandal situation if you take Ford over Jimmer Candelario. Candelaria's got 4 home runs, a 173 ISO, has hit for a lot more power over time. Last year, 22 homers and 576, had a 220 ISO. Year before, just 13 with a 145 ISO and 467, though. A couple years before that, a little bit more contact. India, mediocre. Jacob Hurtubise? I have no idea how to say that. Hurtubise? There's no second R. Hurtubise. He's the dead min on DraftKings. He's not on the FanDuel slate. He's never made a plate appearance in the major leagues. If he's in the lineup, go for it. Let's see. Nope. $5.10. We're breezing through this thing. Come on, Fangraphs. Fangraphs literally has nothing for him. That's not possible. That's so weird. Fangraphs has no statistics for this guy. He's in the thing. Yeah, he's apparently a West Point graduate. So irrelevant. I don't even know if this guy's in the lineup. Looks like he ranks 24th organizationally as a prospect. Yeah, none of this is all relevant information. He's only made 29 plate appearances in the minors this season, so that's pretty relevant. He's got 1 home run. Last year, in 342 at-bats, not plate appearances, at-bats, 7 home runs, 330, 479, 482 with a 961 OPS. That was, does it give me the levels? That was in AA and AAA. He is 26 years old. Looks like he went to all of his years of college and then was at West Point, so I'm not sure what the situation there was, but I don't think there's all that much from Jacob Hurtubise at the bottom of the lineup, but we got to talk about every player. Diamondback side of this, going up against Hunter Green, 8,600, 9,300. You can see Hunter Green projects out pretty well, 27.7% strikeout rate, 3.38 ERA with a 4.17 xFIP. Reasonable enough option, generating a great 12.9% strikeout rate. He walks too many. That's where he gets burnt. 11% walks, reduces the CSW, but he's been very good at avoiding premium contact, just 30.4% hard hits, 87.3 miles an hour of exit velo, 4.5% barrel rate despite a 21.1 degree average launch angle, and a bunch of good starts. He got lit up for 7 runs, 6 earned on 6 hits back on the 10th of April by Milwaukee. He struck out 9 in that game, though. He clawed some of it back, gave up 2 home runs, unfortunately. He gave up those 2 home runs, and then he gave up 1 in his most recent start. In that one, against the same Diamondbacks team, he went 5 innings, gave up 3 earned, 4 hits, struck out 6, but he walked 5. That lengthened his innings. It shortened his start overall. And that's probably where some of the runs came from. If he can avoid the walks, and that's always a question. He walked 4 in the start before that, struck out just 5, but pitched 5 2/3 clean innings, 5 hits, no runs. That was against Baltimore. 6 strikeouts with just 1 walk and 1 hit over 7 against Texas, and a terrific start, 3 starts back at Texas. Faced Philly in Cincinnati, so, Hitters Park. Went 7, struck out 6, walked 2, 4 earned runs, 7 hits, but at least enough depth and some strikeouts to help erase those runs. Strikeout high of 9, and then he struck out 8, and he struck out 6 4 times this year. A lot of upside, 27.7% strikeout rate. It's just a good Diamondbacks lineup on the other side. Fairly low strikeout options among some of their key hitters, although some of these guys have been more gettable this year. And you get Blaze Alexander hitting second. That's part of why. An increased strikeout rate for Christian Walker. Jock Peterson's up a little bit year over year. Alexander probably going to settle in right around this level. So believable enough strikeout upside for a pitcher who's very good at going and getting his strikeouts. At 93, I think he's in play on FanDuel, and I like him a lot at 8,600 on DraftKings. You can see where he projects for the money among those top starters. And I think on talent, he's definitely in this group. Carlos Rodon's in that group too on talent. All right, that's your top-end talent for this slate. And you could argue about whether Ronel Blanco belongs in there. So for the money, Hunter Green looks very appealing compared to those other options. The only comparable guy salary-wise is Carlos Rodon, and he's got a worse match. Well, now Rodon's maybe got a similar matchup, but he's been pitching at a lower form. So Green's in play. That's a spot I would definitely hedge with some Diamondbacks, though. They're very cheap for their talent. Highest priced player on the Diamondbacks on FanDuel, $3,400, $5,000 for Corbin Carroll on the DraftKings slate. They've underperformed their talent in some ways. They've got a lot of good hitters in this lineup. Corbin Carroll dramatically underperforming his talent so far this year, as I think everybody knows. 64 WRC plus, 2 home runs, 8 stolen bases, sub Mendoza, not what we expected from Corbin Carroll so far. Blaze Alexander was a good OPS option throughout the minors, getting on at an interesting 352 clip. He's got 3 home runs in 91 plate appearances. Definitely a playable part at shortstop for 26. You get him at second or short for 37 on DraftKings. He's in play. Reasonable enough premium contact. Peterson, mashing. Christian Walker, mashing. 5 home runs for Peterson, 7 for Christian Walker in 117 and 183 plate appearances. The output, the actual totals of home runs haven't been completely in line with the premium contact for Christian Walker yet, but I expect that'll normalize as time goes on. The ISO, same thing. Jock Peterson, everything's been delivered. Lourdes Gurriel, 5 home runs, but a 235, 283. He's been in a real tailspin over his last 73 plate appearances after a good start. Down to an 88 WRC plus, but still very playable, and the price has gone down commensurate with the dip in output. Junior Suarez, a playable part at third base, 3,800, 2,900. He's cheap enough, not making the contact that we're used to from him. Only 3 home runs, 118 ISO, 84 WRC plus, but lurking in there in any given slate sense is a power hitter. So you can get away with Suarez shares, but he's not a top priority bat in a not top priority Diamondbacks lineup. Jake McCarthy, Kevin Newman, Tucker Barnhart, kind of afterthoughts down toward the bottom of the lineup. McCarthy's been good. He does have some speed. He's gotten on and created at a 372 clip and created runs 24% better than average. We'll see what that looks like over time. But I mean, that hitter in that spot of the lineup, there's a reason he's just kind of an afterthought. So the Reds, I think, are my preferred side. Reds are a big yes here. A lot of value there. I can see some upside. Hunter Green. Actually, I'm going to reprioritize that. Hunter Green's probably the top priority, even with the Reds bats as appealing as they are. Hunter Green, especially on DraftKings at 86. Then the Reds bats, not far behind. Playable enough Diamondbacks bats for cheap pricing, and I wouldn't really go to Slate Ciccone. I don't think there's much upside there. Terry just jinxed us. Sorry, Larry. Which picture? I don't know what you're asking, Gophius. I assume that's an abbreviation. Go foo yourself, so to speak. Thanks a lot, pal. All I see is colors. There's a lot of colors on here. Trying to help distinguish. If there were no colors on here and it was just a big block of numbers, it would be impossible to distinguish anything for this show. Try my best. Royals, Michael Wacha on the hill, 6,800, 7,600. Let's talk some Wacha. 5.15 ERA, a 4.32 xFIP. Been mediocre at best, but does have a little bit of talent. 19.4% strikeouts, 9% swinging, 26% CSW. Stuff Plus doesn't really like him, but he's been good at limiting premium contact, just 87 miles an hour of exit velo, 35% hard hits, 5.8% barrels, and he's been better for strikeouts in years past. 22.4% last year with a 3.22 ERA, a 4.47 xFIP, decent swinging strike rate. Year before, a 3.32 ERA, a 3.99 xFIP with a 20.2, lower walk rates. So, enough reason to believe that against a team that like every pitcher so far has gotten with all these strikeouts, all the struggles that this team's been going through, reason enough for me anyway to get to some Wacha. He's very cheap on FanDuel at 76. He projects out very well for the money at 68 on DraftKings. He is the top option in the bargain bin. It's not incredibly high faith. If you roll this 100 times, the Mariners are probably knocking him out of the box 40 times. 10 of those will be in the middle, and then the other will favor Wacha probably. But I think that's enough reason to believe and enough upside to go against the team with a 28% strikeout rate for the projected lineup. Let's see if we got any confirmed lineups for this one. We have the Royals, but not the Mariners. So just with the gettable opponent, it's not Wacha love so much as we're just going to target this Mariners team until they normalize, or maybe this is just normal. I think it's a spot you can definitely hedge if you make a big investment in Wacha, which I'm not advocating a huge investment, but he is a appealing value option. I definitely think you can hedge that with some Mariners bats in other lineups. I'd be focused on Julio. As bad as he's been, 255, 309, 321. The average is coming up a little bit. 88 WRC plus, only 2 homers, 9 steals. There's still a tremendous amount of talent there. Still hitting the ball hard, 50.9% hard hits. The barrels have dipped a little bit. 5,000, 3,200. The price has dipped significantly. Josh Rojas has been really good from the top spot for them so far. This has been their best player, which I guarantee you he's not their best player, but he's been their best player. 4,200, 3,000 multi-position. He's slashing 343, 405, 505, creating runs 66% better than average. Mitch Haniger, Cal Raleigh, Mitch Garver. There's a lot of power through that group, but there's a ton of strikeouts there. You can see average strikeout rate for those 3 power hitters, 32.4% this year. Same guys last year, a better 26.7, but that's still very, very targetable. You do have 5 home runs from Mitch Haniger, 10 home runs from Cal Raleigh, and 5 from Mitch Garver, but they're also at a average that is below the Mendoza line at 198. Luke Raley, a little bit of lefty pop, hasn't really shown too much this year. 84 plate appearances, been okay though, 266, 310, 392. Looks like this lineup just landed. I think it's no, we get no. Oh no, hold on. I said oh no too many times. I think they just shuffled the deck. Yeah, Ty France moving to the 5 spot, Garver moving to the 3 spot, Mitch Haniger dropping down to the 7 spot. It at least separates some of those super high strikeout guys, but Ty France has been at 24.3% so far this year in 148 plate appearances. Last year, just 17.6, and other years similar production for low strikeouts. Hasn't hit for average or gotten on base this year, hasn't created runs effectively, so no great shakes there. Raley, like I was saying, has only delivered 2 home runs, 2 steals, but a 106 WRC plus in a small sample. He's been an effective enough bat. If you're stacking this team, you can get to him. Haniger dropping down the lineup, I don't like quite as much as back up here, but cheap power upside. Dylan Moore, a little bit productive, but not all that talented. 114 WRC plus, 3 home runs, 6 steals. Capable of knocking one out of the park or swiping a bag here and there, but in the long term, not a great DFS option. Luis Urias, a little bit of power upside, 3 home runs on the season in just 69 plate appearances, a 207 ISO, 10.8% barrels. We've seen him hit for a little bit of power over time. He's very cheap, not an ideal wraparound. Not a guy who's getting on base and setting the table for these guys. He's more clearing a late lineup stack, and the rest of that late lineup stack isn't great. On the Royal side, Logan Gilbert's just really good. He had a rough one in his last start. He gave up 1 home run. He struck out 4. He walked 2. He faced 22 hitters, but it happened only in 4 innings. And in that 4 innings, he managed to give up 9 hits and 8 earned runs. That hurt. We definitely had Logan Gilbert that day. That was against the Twins. That was while the Twins were on that frisky run. That was on the 9th, 5 days ago. 8 innings pitched against Houston the start before that. 2-hitter. Struck out 6. He did walk 4. Uncharacteristically high walk game there. Also walked 4 against Texas. Struck out 6 in that one. But basically, the exact same start. Faced 26 hitters in that one, gave up just 2 hits, no earned runs. In between those 2 starts, he went against the Diamondbacks, 6 1/3, gave up 2 earned, gave up a homer, but struck out 9, walked just 1. Exactly 1 walk in each of his first 4 starts with 6 or 7 or 8 strikeouts. It all results in a 27.1% strikeout rate, 7.5% walks, 2.94 ERA with a 3.42 xFIP, a dominant 120 mark by Stuff Plus, great swinging strike rate, great CSW, hasn't given up all that much power and premium contact. It's floating in the mid-range. Last year he was right around the same level. He's actually made some steps forward so far for premium contact. 3.73 ERA, 3.76 xFIP. Strikeouts have gone up. Walks are up a little bit, but I like him to normalize back down to a 5-6%, somewhere in that neighborhood. Swinging strikes are up, CSW's up. So he's shown some notable improvements for already a very good pitcher. So I think we're just probably targeting Royals with Logan Gilbert. He projects out great. 9,200 is a very reasonable price for the second-ranked pitcher on the board on DraftKings. Not a bad option and easily in this group of talented pitchers at the top of the board. You can take Royals bats against. You're just hoping that you get another bad game for walks and maybe a little bit of power, or maybe something was up in that Minnesota game. Obviously, maybe it continues tonight. We'll see. But I'm not going to hang my faith on that. So it's a low-end night for the Royals bats. Michael Garcia from the top, 238, 289, 372, 84 WRC plus, 4 homers, 9 steals. Definitely playable. Obviously hits ahead of all their key bats. Should not, but does. 6,500, 4,300 for Bobby Witt, superstar shortstop, 13% barrels, 50.7% hard hits, 5 homers, 15 steals. If you're not playing Ellie, Bobby Witt's a dynamite alternative for a super high price shortstop. Basically any given slate, but again, not a great matchup for this team overall. Not a lot of support in the lineup on the wrong night that way. Vinny Pasquantino, tons of premium contact, 10.9% strikeouts, puts bat on ball ridiculously effectively. You guys know I'm enthusiastic about this hitter. 250, 333, 443, and climbing. 5 home runs, a 193 ISO, WRC plus at 115. Really like Vinny Pasquantino for cheap. Sal Perez, crushing the ball when he makes contact. 3,300 on FanDuel, 53 on DraftKings is about right. 8 home runs on the season, 221 ISO. This is your core of key guys, those 3, if you're building with this team. Michael Massey's a playable part for 4,200, 2,700 at second base. He's got 3 home runs, had a respectable hard hit rate the last 2 seasons, decent barrel rate. I think this was very small sample. This was a bigger sample. It's down a little bit this year, but there's a little bit of ability to hit the ball hard from the left side. He's got 3 home runs, a 178 ISO. MJ and Nelson in the heart of the line, or in the lower part of the lineup here, 3,236 on DraftKings, 26 apiece on FanDuel. They have been stuck at 2 home runs and 4 home runs respectively for weeks now. I do believe in the 2 power bats, but they need to get it going again. Hunter Renfroe, been stuck at 3 home runs. He's at 153, 223, 261. Problematic. Fair amount of strikeouts from those bottom end hitters too. Garrett Hampson, total afterthought at the bottom of the lineup. I don't like the Royals as a stack today. If you're going there, it's the top 7. And really on current season output, it's like the top 4. And then mix and match your way through these guys in, however many stacks you build. Logan Gilbert, big yes. Michael Wacha, pretty solid yes from the bargain bin. Definitely going to have him. Mariners bats as a hedge are a yes, but it's an uncomfortable one. They've been really, really bad. And the Royals just facing a really good pitcher. I don't think it's totally necessary. 2 games to go. Bunch of you guys still here hanging out. Hit that like button for me if you haven't already. I appreciate it. Always makes me feel good the next day when I pull up the previous day's show to create the show for the new day. I see how many likes we got. Sometimes I go back and check, but not often. I'm not keeping track of you guys. Cal Quantrill on the bump for the Colorado Rockies. They're facing Dylan Cease. Worst team in baseball, probably. Worst lineup in baseball, facing one of the premium strikeout pitchers in the game. Seems like a really strong spot for Dylan Cease to succeed. I really have no cause to believe that Dylan Cease wouldn't succeed here. And I really have no reason outside of the wildest contrarian dart to say that you should play Rockies. It's just not on the board. They're really bad. Can they get him? Are there days out of 100 rolls? Does it come up anti-Cease a couple times? Sure. If you roll this matchup 100 times, 11 of them are going to come up with the Rockies doing well. Maybe another 10, 15 of them you don't necessarily want Cease, but the Rockies don't do all that well. And then like 75, 80 of them, Dylan Cease is going to have a pretty dominant start. So we're strongly on the Cease side. He's very expensive, $11,000 on both sides. Total justification. Outside of his first start on March 30th, which lasted 4 2/3, he's gone at least 6 innings in every start. He's pitched into the 7th 3 times, completed exactly 6 in every other start. His strikeout low for the season is 5. 7 strikeouts a number of times, 8 strikeouts a couple times, 6 strikeouts in that first game over just 4 2/3, and then 12 strikeouts against the Cubs in his most recent start. 12 strikeouts, 2 walks, 1 hitter over 7, shut him out. He's given up an earned run high of 5. That came against a very good Philadelphia lineup. 6 innings, 5 strikeouts, 3 walks, gave up a homer, gave up 5 earned, 6 hits. That was one of 2 home runs he's given up all season. That was the only time all season he's given up more than 2 earned runs. Dylan Cease is very, very good. 2.19 ERA, 3.31 xFIP, 32.4% strikeouts. Giving up a little bit of barrels, a little bit of launch, but only 34.3% hard hits. 89.6 miles an hour of exit velos, pushing it a little, but just a 1.08% home run rate. Again, 2 home runs on the season. He's been very good at limiting power so far. Last year, it was similar in terms of the hard hits, the launch, the exit velo, and it was only 2.42% home runs. Year before, 2.14 with a good hard hit rate and limited exit velo. But just with his ability to generate swinging strikes, keep guys off their, off balance at the plate, I think that explains away some of the lack of home run output, even with some premium contact. Tremendous option on the mound. 14.9% swings, 30.5% CSW. Fire away. If you are oddly compelled to go to the Rockies, I'll at least give you the confirmed lineup. I've advocated for the Rockies in a couple spots this year. I told you we were going to do that, I think, on the first show of the year. I said I think there are a couple somewhat interesting players in here, and we're going to go to them in the right spot a few times. Out of those, let's call it 3 or 4 times so far that we've said maybe they're in play, I don't think it's worked out at all yet this year. They've had a couple decent games. They've had a couple guys who are doing well to start the season. But overall, this is one of the worst teams in baseball going up against one of the overall best pitchers. It's just not on the board for me. Nobody's going to be there. If they end up scoring, 4 or 5 runs early, maybe they vault teams up to the top of the board. Although this is one of the later games. But the amount of times that the Rockies are going to score 10 runs here are so limited. Charlie Blackmon's at 248, 311, 380. He's a contact hitter these days, and he's only got an 80 WRC plus over 132. Ezequiel Tovar, good start, cooled off dramatically already. 4 home runs, 4 steals, and 92 WRC plus. Ryan McMahon's been their best player, 301, 384, 458. Reason enough to believe that McMahon can continue a decent batting average, good on base, decent slug, and some power output from the left side. But a lot of this is probably diminished over time. 125 WRC plus, probably going to cool a little bit, but he's making great contact. If you're going to Rockies, he's an absolute priority, and he's fairly priced. I like him at second base for 31 if you're going there, but again, I'm not going there. 4,500, 2,700, Elias Diaz has been their second best player. Cheap enough catcher. Not a spot where I'm going to one-off Elias Diaz against this pitcher, but on other slates, he's on that list. Brendan Rodgers, 32.25, hasn't been great. He is slashing 267, 314, 351, but 24% worse than average for run creation. Brenton Doyle's been a little bit frisky, 4 homers, 8 steals, a decent triple slash, 10% above average for run creation. He's on the list of playable parts if you're going to this team, but don't do it. Jake Cave, Elueris Montero, and Jordan Beck from the bottom of the lineup. Montero, a prospect with power, but has never put it together in a couple cups of coffee at the major league level. Jordan Beck getting his first chance, 2,200 in the outfield on both sites. Over 43 plate appearances, just 186, 186, 209, and a negative 7 WRC plus, which isn't good. The weird spot is the Padres against Cal Quantrill. In his last outing, Quantrill went 6, faced 24 hitters, struck out 5, walked 3, gave up a homer, but that was the only earned run, 5 hits. That was against the Giants. dominant start against the Pirates the start before that at Pittsburgh. 7 2/3, 9 strikeouts, no walks, no runs, 3 hits. That was the best start of the year. Had a good 6-inning start against Seattle, struck out 4 but walked 5, so let's call it less than good but effective enough. Over 5 innings against Houston in between the Seattle start and the Pittsburgh start. Went just 5, gave up 6 earned runs, struck out just 2, walked 2, 2 home runs allowed. That's the Cal Quantrill I know. 2 home run game earlier in the season against Arizona. Actually, 2 home run games against Arizona this season. Has made some effective starts this year, but I just think that this, especially with Luis Arraez at the top setting the table, I just think this Padres team gets them at least enough for them to score a few runs. 5-6 run day. Maybe they don't have immense output, but enough that I think they burn him even as a value play. It's not really a pitcher that I want to go to. Overall, it amounts to a 16.1% strikeout rate, 8.9% walks, 3.94 ERA with a 4.51 xFIP. Enough premium contact, but a limited launch angle at 9.7 degrees. The other 2 years were 13 plus. Has never been a good strikeout pitcher in the show. Okay numbers for runs this year over the biggest sample, but I really don't have much faith, even at 55 on DraftKings. As a dart, considering it's a hitter price, I think you can play it if you want to. It's just very, very low faith on a day where there are significantly higher faith options. I didn't mean to highlight Quinn Priester necessarily, but higher faith options for similar prices. If I'm rostering pods, which I definitely think you can, they're at least a little bit interesting. 8.83 in the home run model for Fernando Tatis. He's got 8 homers, 6 steals, 125 WRC plus. He's got Luis Arraez setting the table for him now. Arraez, since joining the pods, had I think a 4-hit day on one of his first games. This could come down slightly. He came out to a bad start to the season and then drove this up to I think like 311 or so. I saw a little bit limited on base, but we know that he is a spectacular bat on ball option. That slow swing combined with squaring the ball up, et cetera, putting the ball in play that we were looking at in StatCast yesterday. Won the batting title each of the last 2 years, once in the NL, once in the AL. Decent enough target for winning it again this year. So tremendous player to set the table. Jake Cronenworth rolling 4,800, 3,000, still pretty effectively cheap. 143 WRC plus, second on the team behind the 167 that Jurickson Profar is still somehow clinging to. 320, 402, 517. He's been terrific this year. 4,900, 3,100 from Manny Machado is cheap. 5 home runs, a 130 ISO. He's been scuffling, but there's reason to believe if we look at the premium contact, it's actually up over last year. Strikeouts are a little bit higher. Walks are down a little bit. I think Manny rounds into Manny form pretty quickly. Could start today against Cal Quantrill. Xander Bogaerts, another player I do still believe in the turn. 72 WRC plus, 212, 264, 318. We saw him get out to a bad start last year and then go up and down throughout the season and then finish with a respectable enough stat line. So I like him to do similar things this year, but it's just kind of on faith rather than a lot of statistical backing right now. Jackson Merrill, 36-27, definitely playable. He's cheap. Shortstop and outfield eligible at 27 on FanDuel. Outfield only. He's more of a just another outfielder on DraftKings at that price. This is kind of interesting. 291, 342, 403, creating runs at a 17% better than average clip. 3 homers, 6 steals. Playable. Campusano fits in at catcher if you're building a bunch of Padres stacks. A low-end spot in the lineup, though. Ha-Sung Kim from the bottom. Triple position eligible. Makes for a good wraparound based on the skill set. Reasonable enough expectation of getting on base. Does have a lot of speed. Capable of hitting the long ball as well. Just kind of struggling so far this year. Hasn't been great this year. Padres bats are Dylan Cease is like way up here. Should be a killer spot. On paper, before lock, one of the top spots we've honestly seen this season. Right? Should be one of the best pitching spots we've seen all year. No guarantees that it's going to be. But like I said, 75, 80 times out of 100 that you roll this slate, Dylan Cease is going to have a monster start. A lot of faith. Rockies are a no. Pretty firm no, even in a contrarian sense, even in a value contrarian sense. I just don't see them succeeding enough to really justify it. You need a higher success rate. Even with, looking at it as, well, we just continue to roll contrarian plays and the few times they do hit, pay for the times that they don't hit. I think with the Rockies, you're more outweighed by the times they don't hit than the times that they do. I really think that. Padres are definitely in play. So it's Cease and the Padres bats. Last game up. Stephen Leibowitz took the Mariners money line today. Small sample, but Cease has not been as good at home. Yeah, but it's a pitcher's park, and there's no reason to believe that that would be a thing, right? Why would he just not pitch well in San Diego? Probably just a little bit of small sample. Worth mentioning, Steve. I'm not criticizing the comment, but probably not going to be a thing over time. I worry more about talent and who you actually are too, rather than like where you're pitching, especially when it's a good pitcher in a pitcher's park. If we were talking about like Coors Field, obviously we'd have a little different conversation about that. That said, I would still like him, even at this price, at Coors Field in this matchup. Maybe not as much. I wouldn't be saying it's the best spot of the entire season so far. My feelings are crushed. Mama's saying, hopefully I'll win it all. And my LA prop today, easy to get to Cease and Sale in Cincy stacks with Ford up top. Ooh, that's kind of interesting. So is it Mike Ford leading off? Is that what I'm hearing? Or are you just saying Ford up top in your stack? Blue Jays Orioles postponed for anybody playing that slate. I don't see the Reds lineup yet. But yeah, Mikey Ford, as we looked at, a little bit of lefty power. Journeyman guy, but reason to believe that he can succeed here. Speaking of reason to believe that guys can succeed, the Dodgers are facing Keaton Winn. Not to bury the lead for the entire show, but the Dodgers are the top-ranked team on the stacks board. Surprising no one going up against Keaton Winn. Winn does, excuse me, like hiccups or burp. No, it's a burp. Winn does have a surprisingly high 112 stuff plus rating. It's only resulted in an 18.5% strikeout rate, 9.9% swinging, 25.5% CSW, 5.63 ERA, but a 3.76 xFIP underneath that. What's been problematic for him has been the contact so far. It's only a 6.2 degree average launch, so he's kept home runs in the park a little bit, but 47.8% hard hits, 92.5 miles an hour of exit velo with an 8% barrel rate is not going to play well against this Dodgers squad. So I just think it's kind of a layup to say that the Dodgers are in a killer situation here. Maybe Win rounds into a better pitcher, but I don't think we're going there. Not for 5,000, not for 6,500. Even as this is a cheap hitter price now. I really have a hard time believing we're going to see much success here out of Keaton Winn. In his most recent outing, he started at Colorado, went 3 2/3, struck out 1, gave up 7 earned runs on 8 hits. In a start at Philadelphia, he went 2/3 of an inning on the 4th. Was that an opener situation? 28th to the 4th. No, that's full rest. Gave up. I think he just came out. I'm not sure what happened in that one. I could have looked at it if I had noticed it sooner. But at Philadelphia, he lasted just 2/3 of an inning, faced 8 hitters, gave up 5 earned on 4 hits, struck out 0 and walked 2. So maybe they just figured he wasn't on form. I'm not sure. 6 innings in each of the 3 starts before that. He was okay. 5 strikeouts against Pittsburgh, 6 strikeouts against the Mets, 4 strikeouts against the Marlins. Booked a quality start in each of them. Just 1 earned run allowed in each. But those 3 teams are notably not the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Phillies are the best comp, and they crushed him. He faced this same Dodgers team back on April 1st. He gave up 3 earned runs in 5 innings. He struck out 6, walked just 1. I think, based on where Stuff Plus has him, I think maybe there's reasonable expectation to think that he'll round into a okay enough pitcher. But again, just not the right spot. He is his 4th ranked prospect. He had a 25.1% strikeout rate in AAA last season over 58 innings. 4.81 ERA with a 4.58 xFIP. That's all right, but it's not going to get it done against the Major League Dodgers. Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, all superstars. Max Muncy and Teoscar Hernandez not far behind. Stack those 6 hitters in any order. If that's not the configuration of the lineup, the top 6 hitters, whoever they might be in this lineup, unless they go out and shop for all new players today, absolutely playable in any configuration. Tons and tons of power, tons of on base, Batting average is fair for most. It was great for most of these guys, and reasonable for the power output from these two. 9 home runs from Muncy, 11 from Teoscar to tie Shohei Ohtani for the team lead. Ohtani, as we looked at the top of the show, by FanDuel average scoring, is the highest scoring player in DFS this year. Elly De La Cruz not far behind. Mookie Betts not far behind the pair of them. Killer options from the top. Freddie Freeman has underperformed his talent early in the season, but the results are still pretty dynamite. 293, 403, 459. He's only hit 4 home runs, only a 166 ISO, and only, heavy quotes on that, creating runs 47% better than average. He's still tremendous. Gavin Lux, 31-24. Good option to round out the lineup, help pay for these guys up here. Fits in at second base, lefty bat, capable talent, just 1 home run, 1 steal. Hasn't been good so far this year, but there is reason to believe that he's going to round into form. Andy Pajes has been great over 101 plate appearances, 286, 327, 484 since his call-up, 198 ISO. He's hit 4 home runs already. Outman has been bad to start the season, but a capable enough lefty bat if he's in the lineup for a cheap price. Giants side, going up against Gav Stone. I think Gavin Stone's kind of interesting here. It's only a 17.1% strikeout rate. Like, everything I said about Keaton Winn outside of the good stuff plus rating could apply to Gavin Stone. He's got a 17.1% strikeout rate. The walks are too high. 3.55 ERA with a 4.30 xFIP. The xFIP's higher than Keaton Winn's xFIP is. The whip is similar. He does have a better swinging strike rate, similar, exact same CSW. Done a little bit better for power and premium contact. It's not a tremendous high faith spot, but I think given recent form, given the opponent, Gavin Stone could succeed here. 23.4% strikeout rate for the projected Giants lineup, 23.7% for those hitters last year. Stone went 7 innings against Miami in his most recent start, struck out 4, walked 0, gave up a home run, but only that one earned. 6 hits. Just 1 earned run in the 2 starts before that as well. Went 6 against Atlanta, struck out 5, walked 1, just a home run, solo shot, 5 hits. 2-hitter over 7 innings at Toronto, struck out just 2, walked 2, gave up a solo home run in that one as well. If you're looking for a solo home run, maybe Matt Chapman's your guy. But that's about it. Not a lot of upside in the Giants lineup. I think they're playable enough. They're very cheap. Gavin Stone's no ace. But I think I kind of prefer the Stone side for $7,900. He's effectively priced. He lands on a good enough spot in the middle of the board. Reasonable expectation of a win, if not a quality start. And he's pitched deep enough into games this year, at least over the last 3, that I think there's upside for a quality start too. If you're rostering Giants against, Yaz is not a bad starting point for 37-24. He hasn't been good so far this year, but we know there's lefty pop lurking there. 44% hard hit rate with a 9.8% barrel last year. Better than that the year before. Decent amount of strikeouts in there. Pushes some upside for Gavin Stone, but a lefty power bat to start things off. Tyler Estrada, good player, also underperforming his talent. He does have 6 home runs, but just a 99 WRC plus, 245, 272 most importantly. Needs to get on base to exploit his speed upside, but hitting for a little bit of power anyway. 5 home runs from Matt Chapman so far, a 135 ISO. Those don't really go together. The contact is down significantly from the ridiculous output last year, which didn't really result in a ton of home runs last year. But Chapman is a any given slate home run option for sure. Lamont Wade, 3,900, 2,600. For a guy getting on base nearly half the time, creating runs 71% better than average, slashing 330, 472, 443. I really don't care that the power is dipped this year. 2 home runs, a 113 113 ISO. It's 127 plate appearances, but Lamont Wade was really good getting on base last year. I don't think it's going to stay at a 47% clip. That's absurd. But 400 plus is definitely reasonable with a little bit of upside for power as things go forward. Really like Lamont Wade. Wilmer Flores, 3,600, 2,400, playable part. A little bit of power upside. Hasn't been good this year. Elliot Ramos, one of their higher end prospects, was doing well in AAA before they called him up. Had a cup of coffee. Wasn't great over the last couple of years. But 2,800 and especially at 2,100 on FanDuel, easily playable if you're stacking Giants lineups. And again, Gavin Stone, no ace. You could say minor league caliber talent, AAA talent against a kid who was just recently playing in AAA. That evens out somewhat. Blake Sable, cheap lefty catcher with a little bit of pop. Not a priority. Luis Matos, 2,000 dead min on both sides. Another prospect bat. Hasn't really delivered much in the show. He made 253 plate appearances last year, hit 2 home runs, 3 steals, 87 WRC plus. But another young bat for the dead men is not completely crazy. Casey Schmidt at the bottom of the lineup hadn't done much this year in 15 plate appearances. Negative 49 WRC plus is impressive. 277 plate appearances last year, had a 59 WRC plus. Has not been good in the show. Dodgers bats way up top. Gavin Stone solidly in the middle for a fair price. Giants bats playable as a hedge, playable as a contrarian low-owned option for very cheap prices. I do think if you're looking Yankees, Dodgers, Astros, the high-end teams of the day, there are better value options on the board, but the Giants are very cheap for some of the talents in this lineup. They wouldn't be a cross-off. They'd be in the mix for some value shares. Keaton Winn, probably a cross-off. I think that makes sense given that he's down here on the pitching board. The only guy worse is Jack Leiter going up against that Guardians team that we like quite a bit for low strikeouts, lots of balls in play, upside for power, and the Guardians are a very cheap team. Guardians and the Brewers, I think, were two of the stronger value plays as things worked out on the stack board from like high-end, highly ranked teams for decent value prices. I think those were both on the list, and I like both of those teams today. Brewers going up against Quinn Priester. Don't really like the upside for Priester. I could see him having a reasonable enough start at 57 where this would probably be my cut line for dart throws. And everybody like Paddock down is dart throw, right? This is your dart throw group. These guys are like your solid mid-range. Maybe I can do this every day. Give like a traffic light. I guess there should be red down here if I'm doing a 4-color traffic light that has orange in it, apparently. And these are the Green Means Go guys. Which is all handled, of course, by the colors that are already in there. Dumbass. But that just occurred to me that would be an effective illustration without thinking about the fact that it was already done. But it groups these guys, right, with the same color. Like you see Dylan Cease gets a little bit darker green as it goes up. I think these are the actual groupings. Where like these are your bargain bin dart throw types. This is your solid mid-range, including a bargain bin guy who is, I think, effectively in the mid-range given the matchup. And then these are guys, any given lineup, if you can afford them, these are the guys that you stick into lineups with probably the true cut line being there. I'm going to make Ronald Blanco orange just because I'm low faith. I think he's outperformed his talent. Take that, conditional formatting. So these are like your true aces. These are your okay enough pitchers with good prices. These are your darts, and these are your no's. Jack Leiter's red also. Dylan Cease is easily the top spot on the slate. Logan Gilbert is very, very good. Chris Sale is very, very good. Tougher matchups for those two. Same thing with Hunter Green. He's less very good than these guys are, but he is very good, especially for strikeout upside. Needs to wrangle the walks. That's going to be the key to him succeeding against the Diamondbacks. Sonny Gray on talent is kind of in this range and a very, very good matchup. It's just a tough price with these guys priced where they are, Hunter Green included. Blanco, good matchup, but again, I think the A's are playable against him for value. One of these days, he's going to go pop. He's not going to have great starts every outing this year with that arsenal of pitches, but he's been really, really effective, and they're gettable enough that it's believable here, but it's also believable that Oakland succeeds against him as a value stack. Rodon, totally playable, but very believable that the Twins can get him. $8,000 is a very effective value price for Carlos Rodon in this matchup on DraftKings, though. Michael Wacha, one more time, just from the solid value bin. It's a killer spot. Good opportunity for him to succeed. Whether he does or not is up to him, and partly the Mariners. Reed Detmer's reason to believe against a bad St. Louis team. Gavin Stone, reason to believe against a mediocre San Francisco team. Nick Pivetta, talented pitcher, was really, really good last year, going up against a gettable Rays lineup this year for a fair price. It's just I don't know what the depth looks like. Savali's been bad this year, but is good, going up against a good Boston team. Don't love it, but he's fairly priced for that. Paddock against the Yanks. He's only a dart throw on DraftKings for 65, wildly different prices across sites. No real justification for 9,000 on FanDuel. Joe Ross, playable. Ciccone, not really. Prefer the Cincinnati side. JP Sears, not really. Greatly prefer the Houston Bats. Ben Lively is a no, pretty much a no. They're all darts. But you get blinder darts as you go down that board. This should be a fifth color on this. But I'm not going to take the time to do that. Home run board. If I continued to look at that for too much longer, I would have ended up stratifying each pitcher into his own unique color and then just re-explaining the entire slate one more time. Aaron Judge, top of the board, 14.93. Jordan Alvarez not far behind. Ronnie Acuna, Corey Seager, Juan Soto, Matt Olson, William Contreras, Willie Adames. You can see where my Milwaukee love comes from. Unfortunately, we don't get Gary. He'll probably end up pinch hitting and hitting a home run. Book that, actually. Gary Sanchez pinch hit home run today. It's going to piss me off. Adames and William Contreras, though, killer options there. The Yankees are showing a ton of power. 3 guys in above the magic number. The teams with 3 guys above the magic number were the Yanks. The Brewers were, but now I guess they're not. Although you do get Yelich just short of it, and you do get Jake Bauers just short of it. The Braves were one of them, I think. Yeah. Ozuna, Olson, and Acuna all over. And then the Astros, Alvarez, Tucker, and Altuve just short of it. We'll give it to him. Believable upside for Jose Ramirez, and just a lot of love for that Cleveland lineup against that pitcher for what they do. Josh Naylor also above the magic number for home run upside. Dodgers bats, you get Ohtani above the magic number. You get Mookie not that far short of it. And I'm sure some of these other guys not far off either. The hell are the rest of them? A little further off than I would have thought. But still plenty of power upside from the Dodgers. They're the Dodgers, and they're going up against Keaton 1. All right, gang. Let me get these projections updated. We're coming up on 6 o'clock. I think that was a long enough show. Appreciate you guys. You absolutely rock. Larry says, I like that you do the home run model on the site now. I color code it that way during your show. Yeah, it's in addition to the free, just game by game and then one overall home run pick for the entire slate. The home run numbers, these home run numbers that you're looking at are in the projections. If you haven't noticed, I give you the projection for DK, the projection for FanDuel, projection for DK with the pricing and positions, and then that last column is before you get to the lineup numbers is the home run total. So you get all these, and they're all for free up on the website. That said, let me get everything updated. Clintwood, you're quite welcome, my friend. Steve and Larry, you guys are all very welcome. I appreciate you guys. One more time, like button, subscribe. Check out acemind.io for all your sim needs. Promo code rotoscouts, all in caps, gets you 20% off your first month. Jump into the Discord, WNBA chat, WNBA projections. Very, very rough version of the model. Actual NBA. Damn it, I did it again. NBA, not actual NBA. It's just men's versus women's. It doesn't make one the actual and one the not. NBA playoff projections going in very shortly after the baseball projections. Good luck out there. Somebody go win something. Not sure what tomorrow looks like. I'm going to have to let you guys know. It depends on what time I get out of here. We'll probably have enough time to do a show. And then rest of the week going to be no shows until next Tuesday because I'm traveling to Texas. But everything on the website will be up. Projections, picks, all that stuff. See you guys.